Good evening, listeners. Welcome to Noir Intellect. I'm your host, Victor Blackwood. If you enjoy mysteries, hidden clues, and uncovering the truth, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Leave it in the comments below. Now, keep your eyes open and your mind sharp. The mystery begins now. Chapter 1. 3 rooms that were one. There are 3 things I have learned about hotel managers. The first is that they know exactly how much a room is worth. The second is that they know exactly how much a guest is worth. The third is that when a hotel manager arrives at Nero Wolfe's brownstones before breakfast, carrying 3 photographs, a leather folder, and the expression of a man who has just discovered that his building has developed a conscience. The trouble is probably worth listening to. It was a Tuesday morning in October, and I was standing in the kitchen, arguing with Fritz Brenner about bacon. Not about whether there should be bacon. There should always be bacon when Fritz was in charge of breakfast. The argument concerned whether I had already eaten the portion he had placed beside my eggs. "I have not touched it," I said. Fritz looked at the plate. "You have eaten 2 pieces. I have eaten 1.5. The other half is in your mouth." I swallowed. Evidence can be misleading. Fritz shook his head and returned to the stove. That was when the doorbell rang. I looked toward the hallway. Fritz looked at me. Neither of us moved. The bell rang again, a little sharper. "That," I said, "is either an impatient client or a man who has never met one." "Mr. Wolfe does not like breakfast interrupted. Mr. Wolfe does not like most things interrupted." I wiped my mouth, went to the front hall and opened the door. The man on the stoop was about 50, perhaps a little younger, dressed in a dark overcoat that had been expensive enough to make its nervous movements noticeable. His hat was held in both hands. His face was narrow, pale, and damp around the temples. "Mr. Archie Goodwin, at your service provided you have money." He stared at me. I smiled. "Come in." He stepped inside. "Mr. Goodwin, my name is Charles Bellamy. I'm the manager of the Hamilton Hotel." "The one on Madison, yes, I've heard of it." "I hope so. Mostly good things." He released a breath that suggested good things had become an endangered species. "I need to see Mr. Wolfe. He is upstairs." "Is he available?" "That depends. On what? Whether your problem has a corpse attached to it." He looked at me with genuine alarm. "No. Then you may have to compete with breakfast. I was told Mr. Wolfe was the only man who could help me. People tell clients that because they want to charge them more." He did not smile. I led him into the office. The room was, as it always was, orderly and comfortable, with the heavy furniture that suited Wolfe's bulk and the bookshelves that suited his mind. Winter had not yet arrived, but the radiators had begun their seasonal ticking. Through the windows came the familiar New York mixture of horns, engines, footsteps, and distant construction. Above us, in the plant rooms, Wolfe's orchids were already receiving the attention that he considered more important than most human affairs. "Sit down." Bellamy remained standing. "Mr. Goodwin, I have a problem with room 314. "Is that all?" He stared. "Yes, then you're fortunate. Room 315 is usually more expensive." He finally gave a weak smile. I pointed toward the chair. "Sit." I reached for the telephone upstairs and pressed the button. "Wolfe." "Yes, client. Who?" "Charles Bellamy, manager of the Hamilton Hotel." A pause. "Is there a murder?" "No." "Then why is he here?" I looked at Bellamy. He seemed unable to decide whether to answer for himself. "Room 314, he said. I repeated it. "He has a problem with room 314. Another pause. "Send him up." I hung up. Bellamy stood. "Mr. Wolfe sees people upstairs. Only when the problem is sufficiently troublesome." We climbed. Wolfe was in the orchid room, wearing a brown dressing gown and holding a small magnifying glass over a white cattleya. He did not look toward us. "Good morning, Mr. Bellamy." Bellamy stopped. "Good morning, Mr. Wolfe. You manage the Hamilton Hotel?" "Yes." "You have a problem with room 314? "Yes." "What is it?" Bellamy glanced at me. I shrugged. 3 people have described 3 different rooms." Wolfe lowered the magnifying glass. 3 rooms? All 314? "Impossible, that's what I thought." "Then why are you here?" "Because they are all telling the truth." That got Wolfe's attention. He turned fully toward Bellamy. "Explain." Bellamy swallowed. 3 witnesses were questioned about the same room. When? Last Friday. Why? There was an incident. What incident? A guest was found conscious. I raised an eyebrow. You said there was no murder. There wasn't. Was the guest seriously injured? No. Then why are you nervous? Bellamy looked at Wolfe. Because the guest was gone before we could question him. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Explain. The man who was unconscious disappeared. When? Within an hour. Name? Peter Lang. Occupation? I don't know. You checked his registration? Yes. Real name? We don't know. Excellent. Wolfe settled himself into the large chair beside the orchid table. Begin at the beginning. Bellamy took a breath. Last Friday evening, a guest in room 314 called the front desk at approximately 9:15. He said he had been disturbed by noise in the adjoining room. Which adjoining room? Who occupied it? No one. Wolfe's expression changed almost imperceptibly. Continue. An employee went upstairs. He found the door of 314 partly open. Was Lang inside? Yes. Conscious. Apparently. The employee said Mr. Lang was sitting on the edge of the bed and appeared confused. Did he speak? He said something about someone changing the room. I looked at Wolfe. Changing the room? Bellamy nodded. He said, they've moved everything, meaning we don't know. Then the employee left to get security. When they returned, Lang was lying unconscious near the bathroom. Any injury? Nah. Was the room disturbed? That is the problem. Bellamy opened his folder. 3 people saw the room. Who? The employee, Richard Denton, the night security officer, James Avery, and a guest on the same floor, Miss Helen Price. And they gave 3 descriptions. Different? Completely. Wolfe held out a hand. Descriptions. Bellamy removed 3 typed statements. He handed them over. Wolfe read the first. Richard Denton says there was a green armchair beside the writing desk. He read the second. James Avery says there was no armchair, green or otherwise, and the desk stood against the opposite wall. He read the third. Helen Price says there was a writing desk directly beneath the window and that the window was covered by heavy dark curtains. Wolfe looked up. And the hotel records? Bellamy opened another folder. That is what makes it impossible. Why? Because all 3 descriptions are correct. I smiled. Now we're getting somewhere. Bellamy ignored me. Room 314 has changed several times over the years. Furniture? Yes. Windows? Not according to the plans. Curtains? Changed. Armchair? Changed. Desk? Moved. Bellamy hesitated. At different times. Wolfe leaned back. How long has room 314 existed? Since the hotel opened. 38. Has it always been numbered 314? Yes. Same dimensions? According to the current plans. Current? Bellamy nodded. The original plans are different. That interested Wolfe. How? The room was renovated twice. Why? First renovation was cosmetic. Second involved structural work. What kind? Partitions. Partitions. 1 wall was moved when? 14 years ago. And before that? The room had a different layout. Wolfe was silent. I knew that silence. It meant he had stopped listening to the story and begun constructing one. Mr. Bellamy, he said, why did the police question these 3 people? The guest who disappeared was last seen by them. One after another? Yes. At different times? Yes. How long before the incident? Within 40 minutes. Did all 3 enter room 314? Yes. Then each description may correspond to a different moment. Exactly. Which means the room itself is not impossible. No. The timeline is. Bellamy nodded. That is what I think. You are wrong. Bellamy looked startled. The timeline is not the difficulty. What is? The witnesses. He tapped the statements. They remember rooms, not moments, I said. That's a distinction. It is the distinction. Wolfe rose. Goodwin. Yes? You will visit the hotel. Today? Immediately. Bellamy looked relieved. I did not. When do I eat? After you return. That's cruel. It is necessary. Wolfe turned to Bellamy. You will give Mr. Goodwin access to every record concerning room 314. Of course. Renovation plans. Yes. Maintenance reports. Yes. Furniture inventories. Yes. Guest registers. Yes. Housekeeping. Logs. Bellamy hesitated. Yes. Security records. Yes. Everything. Understood. Wolfe looked at me. And find the missing witness. Peter Lang. Yes. You think he's important? I think disappearance is rarely an insignificant detail. Suppose he simply left, then you will find him. And if he didn't, Wolfe's gaze became colder. Then someone has already answered a question for us. The Hamilton Hotel stood on Madison Avenue with the kind of dignity that required regular cleaning to prevent it from becoming arrogance. Its lobby contained marble floors, brass elevators, dark wood paneling, and a chandelier large enough to illuminate several minor European capitals. Bellamy met me at the entrance. "You've been here before?" "Once." "Business?" "Girl," he pretended not to hear. We took the elevator to the third floor. Room 314 stood at the end of a corridor lined with patterned carpet. Bellamy unlocked it. The first thing I noticed was the room's shape. Rectangular. Ordinary. 2 windows on the outer wall. Bed against one side. Writing desk beneath the nearer window. No green armchair. Heavy curtains. I entered. "This is the current arrangement, yes. How long?" 3 years. "Who moved the desk? The last renovation. And the curtains?" 2 years ago." I crossed to the window. The curtains were thick enough to keep out the sun and probably the conscience of the man who designed them. I touched the desk. "Where was it before?" Bellamy pointed. "Against that wall, according to the records?" "Yes. And the armchair?" "Stored downstairs. Show me." He led me to a service room. The green armchair sat beneath a sheet. Its fabric was faded but unmistakable. I examined the legs. One front leg had a brass cap. The chair smelled faintly of dust and old upholstery. "Was this in 314? 14 years ago, before the renovation?" "Yes." "Why removed?" "It didn't fit the new arrangement." "Convenient." Bellamy frowned. "You think the furniture matters?" "I think Wolfe thinks everything matters." We returned to the room. I studied the floor. There were faint marks beneath the carpet, furniture scars. One rectangular outline near the wall, another near the window. The room had been rearranged many times. Yet something bothered me. The current room was not simply a room with old furniture. It was a room that had contained several versions of itself. I said, "Who occupies 314 now?" "No one." "Since Lang?" "Yes." "Why?" "Police request." "Good." I walked into the bathroom. Nothing. Closet. Nothing. Behind the curtains. Nothing. I returned to the bedroom. Bellamy stood near the desk. "Goodwin, there is something else." "What?" "Room 314 was not always 314. I looked at him. "Explain." "Before the second renovation, the room numbers were different." "How different?" 314 was part of a larger suite." "How large?" "2 rooms." "2?" "Originally, 314 and 315 were connected. That changed the room entirely." "Connected how?" "Interior door." "Where?" Bellamy pointed toward the wall beside the closet. "There." I crossed the room. The wall looked solid. "Where is the door now?" "Removed." "When?" 14 years ago. "Was it sealed?" "Brick?" "Yes." I knocked. "Solid." I knocked again. Then I noticed a narrow line in the plaster. A seam. "Who did the renovation?" "A contractor named Howard Crane." "Still in business?" "I don't know." "Find out." Bellamy nodded. I walked back toward the window. The room was beginning to look less like a hotel room and more like a puzzle assembled by people who had assumed nobody would compare the pieces. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe was in the dining room eating lunch. Roast chicken, asparagus, potatoes. A sauce that Fritz would probably have defended in court. I entered carrying the files. Wolfe looked at me. "Report. Room 314. I know, 3 versions." "I know. Originally part of a suite." "I did not know. Connected to 315. He put down his fork. "Interesting. 14 years ago the connecting door was sealed." "Why?" "Renovation." "Who ordered it?" "The hotel." "Why?" "Still investigating." "Continue." I told him about the furniture. The desk. The armchair. The curtains. The floor marks. The sealed doorway. When I finished, Wolfe asked, "Where is the guest register?" "In the folder." He opened it. "Peter Lang, yes. Occupation?" "No." "Listed? Address? Hotel? Telephone?" "No." "Emergency contact?" "Blank." Wolfe looked at the entry for a long moment. "How did he pay?" "Cash. How much?" "When did he check in?" "Wednesday." "Left?" "Friday." "Supposedly." "Yes." "Was luggage found?" "1 suitcase." "Contents?" "Clothing." "Anything unusual?" "Not yet." Wolfe closed the register. "Where is the suitcase?" "Hotel storage." "Bring it." "I'll need permission." "You have permission." "From whom?" "Me." "I don't think you own the hotel." "No." "Then you will persuade them." He returned to his lunch. I said, "There is one more thing." "What?" "One of the witnesses has disappeared." He stopped eating. "Which?" "Martin Cole." "Hotel employee?" "Yes." "When did he disappear?" "Yesterday." "Who last saw him?" "Nobody knows." "Was he questioned by police?" "Yes." "When?" "Saturday." "And disappeared Sunday?" "Apparently." Wolfe placed his fork down. "Mr. Goodwin?" "Yes." "Find him before I find Lang?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because Lang may have disappeared for a reason, and Cole may have disappeared because he knows it." I stared at him. What exactly are you thinking? Wolfe's eyes moved toward the window. 3 descriptions of one room, at different times. A guest who vanished, yes. An employee who vanished, yes. A room whose architecture changed, yes. He looked back at me. That is not a hotel problem. No, it is a memory problem. That afternoon I began with Martin Cole. The hotel supplied his address, a small apartment in Queens. The superintendent told me Cole had not slept there since Friday. Did he take anything? Suitcase, clothes? Some. Did he leave a message? No. Did he have friends? Not that I knew. Family. Brother in New Jersey. I called the brother. No, Martin. I called the hospital. No, Martin. I called 3 taxi companies. Nothing. By 5 o'clock the employee had become a second missing man. I returned to the Hamilton. Bellamy looked worse. Any luck? No. With Cole? No. Lang? Not yet. He rubbed his forehead. Mr. Goodwin, I have a hotel to run. You have a room to explain. He sighed. I've given you everything. What? Who was in 313 and 315 on Friday? He hesitated. Why? Because 314's history includes 315. He opened a register. Room 313 was occupied by a woman named Helen Price, the third witness. Yes. And 315? Empty. All evening? Yes. Then why did Lang complain about noise? Bellamy looked at me. I don't know. Who checked the room? Martin Cole. Who found Lang? James Avery. And Helen Price. She says she heard a crash from where? 314. I considered it. 3 witnesses. 3 descriptions. 3 moments. And an empty adjoining room. I asked. Housekeeping. Maintenance. Security. Management. How many copies? 6. Who had them Friday? Bellamy produced the key log. I read it. 6 entries. 1 name appeared twice. Martin Cole. The first at 8:47 p.m. The second at 9:31. At 9:31, according to the log, he entered room 314. At 9:36. At 9:42, Lang was discovered unconscious. I looked at Bellamy. What happened at 9:31? I don't know. Did Martin tell police? Not that I saw. Did anyone see him leave? Security camera. Show me. The camera recording displayed the 3rd floor corridor. Martin Cole entered room 314 at 9:31. 5 minutes later, he emerged. He walked toward the elevator. Then the recording flickered. The next frame showed the empty corridor. No Martin. No elevator doors. No explanation. I watched it again. Then again. The flicker lasted 3 seconds. Enough. Not enough. I called Wolfe. He answered immediately. Yes? I found something. Tell me. Martin Cole entered room 314 at 9:31 and left at 9:36. Then the camera loses 3 seconds. Only 3. Yes. Interesting. He disappears from the full recording. Not necessarily. What do you mean? I mean you should stop thinking about disappearance. Why? Because you are looking at a hotel. And? Look at the room. I glanced toward 314. The door stood closed. I suddenly remembered the sealed doorway, the old furniture marks, the 3 descriptions, the missing employee, and one fact that had seemed too ordinary to matter. Room 314 had once been part of a larger suite. I said, Wolfe, yes? I think room 314 has another door. There was silence, then, find it. The line went dead. I looked at the wall where the old doorway had been sealed. For the first time, I wondered whether the wall was actually as solid as it appeared. And somewhere in the hotel, behind 14 years of plaster and paint, there might be another room. Or another version of room 314. Or, if Wolfe's instincts were correct, something far more dangerous. Because 3 people had described 3 different rooms. All 3 had told the truth. The only question was which room had been there when nobody was looking. Chapter 2. The room that changed overnight. There is a particular kind of hotel maintenance that exists only after somebody has been caught doing something that was not maintenance. It begins with a broom. Then comes a bucket. Then a workman who has never heard of the phrase, I don't know. By 9 o'clock the next morning, room 314 had acquired all 3. I arrived at the Hamilton Hotel at 8:15, carrying Wolfe's instructions in my head and a notebook in my pocket. Bellamy met me in the lobby before I reached the elevators. You came early. I was afraid the room might recover, he frowned. Recover from what? Being interesting. He didn't smile. That worried me more than if he had. Is 314 still empty? Yes. Good. I told housekeeping not to enter. He hesitated. Except what? The night supervisor thought the room looked untidy. Tidy? After the police. That was last night. Yes, so somebody wanted to clean it. Bellamy nodded. Who stopped them? I did. Congratulations. He did not seem to appreciate the compliment. We took the elevator. On the third floor, the corridor smelled faintly of furniture polish. The door to 314 stood closed. Bellamy unlocked it. I entered. Then I stopped. The room was different. Not dramatically. That was what made it interesting. A hotel room can change without appearing to change. Move a chair 3 feet, and the room acquires a different center. Shift a desk from one wall to another, and a witness can swear he saw a window that never existed. I looked at the bed, then the desk, then the armchair. There was now a green armchair beside the window. I turned to Bellamy. You said this chair was in storage. It was. How long ago? Yesterday. I don't know. He stared at it. So it wasn't there last night? No, I pointed. It is there now. Yes. That is usually how furniture works. Bellamy's face tightened. I ordered no change. Who has the authority to move furniture? Housekeeping supervisor. Name Mrs. Martha Hale. Get her. He hurried out. I approached the green chair. It was the same one I had seen in storage. The faded upholstery, the brass cap on the front leg, even the small tear near the left arm. I crouched. There was fresh dust around the feet. Not much. Enough. The chair had been moved recently. I looked at the floor. The carpet showed 2 sets of impressions. One beneath the chair's present position, another closer to the opposite wall. Someone had moved it, then moved it back. I examined the second set. The marks were deeper. Something heavier had occupied that position, not the chair. Something much heavier. I stood. The desk was now beneath the window. That matched Helen Price's description. The curtains were open. I pulled them aside. No hidden mechanism, no secret compartment, no ghost. Just a perfectly ordinary hotel window overlooking Madison Avenue. Traffic moved below. A delivery truck stopped at the curb. A man in a grey coat crossed against the light. New York continued doing what it does best. Ignoring mysteries, I turned back. The mirror was different. Yesterday it had been an oval mirror in a dark wooden frame. Now it was rectangular. New. Too new. I touched the edge. The mounting brackets were clean. The wall behind it showed a faint rectangular outline, where the old frame had protected the wallpaper from dust. Someone had replaced it overnight. I took out my notebook. Furniture moved. Mirror replaced. Chair returned. Heavy object once against wall. No work order. I was beginning to dislike room 314. That was usually a sign that I was getting somewhere. Mrs. Martha Hale arrived 5 minutes later. She was a compact woman in her 60s, with silver hair, sensible shoes, and the expression of someone who had spent 30 years correcting other people's mistakes. Bellamy said, Mrs. Hale, did you authorize these changes? She looked around. What changes? I pointed to the chair. That, she frowned. It belongs there. Who put it there? I assumed housekeeping. Did you order it? No. Did anyone tell you to move it? No. Did you replace the mirror? Her eyes shifted toward it. No. Who did? I don't know, I smiled. You're having a productive morning. She did not smile. Mr. Goodwin, I have 80 rooms to manage, and one of them changed overnight. Apparently. Was room after midnight. By whom? Elena Ruiz. Who else? No one. Did she report anything unusual? She said the room was already arranged differently. When she entered? Yes. Who had entered before her? Mrs. Hale hesitated. Security. Which officer? James Avery. The same man who had found Lang unconscious. Interesting. At what time? About 11:40. Why? Routine patrol. Enter. Yes. How long? 2 minutes. Alone, I believe so. You believe. She looked annoyed. I manage housekeeping, Mr. Goodwin. I do not supervise security. Fair enough. I pointed to the carpet. What caused those marks? She stared. I don't know. Has housekeeping reported them? No. Why not? Because they were covered by the chair, and before the chair. What? Was something else there? She shook her head. I have no idea. I thanked her. She left. I waited until the door closed. Then I said to Bellamy, you have a problem. He sighed. I know. No, you have several. At 10:15, Wolfe telephoned. Report. The room changed. I expected that. You expected it? Yes. The furniture moved. Which furniture? The green chair. Where? Beside the window. That corresponds to Helen Price. And the desk? Also beneath the window. Again, Helen Price. The mirror has been replaced. With a rectangular mirror. Was the previous mirror oval? Yes. Interesting, there are heavy marks in the carpet. Where? Against the opposite wall. How heavy? Heavier than a chair. How do you know? The impressions are deeper. Good. Bellamy says there was no work order. Naturally. Why naturally? Because if there were a work order, you would have found it. That's reassuring. It was not intended to be. I glanced at the corridor. Someone altered the room overnight. Yes. To what? To an earlier version. I thought about that. The witnesses. Exactly. Wolfe's voice became thoughtful. Mr. Goodwin, suppose you wish to make 3 truthful witnesses appear to contradict one another. You alter the room between their visits. Correct. One sees the desk. Another sees the chair. Another sees the curtains. Yes, but why? Because contradiction is useful. To whom? To anyone who wishes to destroy confidence in testimony. I frowned. Why would someone care about 3 descriptions of a hotel room? That is what you must discover. I spent the next 2 hours examining the hotel's records. The maintenance office was in the basement, next to the laundry room and a boiler that sounded as its entire life, resenting civilization. Bellamy gave me access to everything. Work orders, repair schedules, furniture inventories, housekeeping reports, security logs, renovation records. I began with the current week. Nothing. No furniture movement. No mirror replacement. No carpet work. No room repair. I went back 1 month. Nothing. 3 months. Nothing. A year. Nothing. The room had apparently remained untouched for 12 months, which meant somebody had made unauthorized changes during the night. I turned to the furniture inventory. Room 314 contained 1 king bed, 2 tight tables, 1 writing desk, 1 desk chair, 1 upholstered armchair, 1 mirror, 2 lamps, 1 television. Nothing remarkable. Then I checked the archived inventory from 15 years earlier. The room contained 1 king bed, 2 night tables, 1 writing desk, 1 desk chair, 1 green upholstered armchair, 1 oval mirror, 2 lamps, no television. The only difference was the arrangement. I found a floor plan. The desk had originally stood against the east wall, the armchair near the south wall, the mirror opposite the bed. The window curtains were heavy, exactly as the witnesses had described them. I pulled out the current floor plan. Desk beneath the window, chair beside the window, mirror on the opposite wall, light curtains, 3 descriptions, 2 arrangements. Yet the hotel records could prove that both had existed. That was Wolfe's point. The witnesses were telling the truth. Someone had merely chosen which truth they would remember. At 1 o'clock I found the security records. Officer James Avery had entered room 314 at 11:38 p.m. the previous night. He remained inside for 2 minutes. At 11:52, Elena Ruiz entered. She remained for 6 minutes. At 12:04, someone else used a master key. No name. I called Bellamy. Who used the master key at 12:04? I don't know. The log says master key. Yes. Who carries it? Management. Who had it last night? Me. Did you use it? No. Then who did? I don't know. I looked at the entry again. The handwriting was different from the others. Neater. Deliberately neat. Mr. Bellamy. Yes. Who writes the security log? Security officer. Every shift. Yes. Who was on duty? James Avery. Then why is this entry not in his handwriting? Silence. I'll come downstairs. We met in the security office. Avery was a large man in his 40s, with a shaved head and a scar under his left eye. He looked at the log. That's my entry. No. He looked at me. What? That's not your handwriting. He smiled. I was tired. You change handwriting when tired. No, then? He shrugged. Maybe I wrote it differently. Who entered 314 at 12:04? I did. Why? Repeat. Enter. At 11:38. Routine again. Did you move the furniture? No. Did you replace the mirror? No. Did you touch the chair? No. Did you see Peter Lang? Avery's expression changed. Yes. When, before the police, was he conscious? Yes. Was the room arranged normally? Yes. Which arrangement? He hesitated. The normal one. Desk? Against the wall. Chair? Near the window. Mirror? All right. Why? Because you have just described the old room. He stared. What? The room as it existed 14 years ago. Avery said nothing. I leaned toward him. You didn't see it last night. His jaw tightened. You're mistaken. You weren't there. True. I know what I saw. Perhaps. He stood. I've got works. He walked out. Bellamy watched him go. Do you believe him? No. Why? He answered too quickly. About what? The mirror, Bellamy frowned. What about it? I didn't tell him the mirror had been replaced. I returned to room 314. The door was locked. I used Bellamy's key. Inside, everything looked exactly as before, except the chair. It had moved. I stared at it. It now stood against the opposite wall. The position of the heavy carpet impressions matched it perfectly. I called Bellamy. He came running. I didn't touch it. I know. Housekeeping. No, then who? I crouched beside the chair. Something had been placed beneath one of its rear legs. A thin piece of folded paper. I pulled it free. It was not a note. It was a fragment of hotel stationery. On it, written in pencil, were 4 numbers. 3 font 3 14 3 14 12 4. I stared. Bellamy whispered. What does that mean? I don't know. I looked toward the sealed wall. For the first time, I wondered whether the numbers were not references to rooms. Maybe they were instructions. Maybe times. Maybe both. I called Wolfe. He answered. Yes, I found numbers. What numbers? I read them. There was a long pause. Then Wolfe said, Excellent. You've used that word twice today. It remains appropriate. What do they mean? That is your next task. You're enjoying this. I am enjoying lunch. Of course. What else? The chair keeps moving. Without assistance? Apparently. Then find the assistance. I looked at the wall. I think the old doorway matters. Why? The chair's heavy marks point toward it. Then stop looking at the chair. What should I look at? The wall. I found the old doorway behind the wallpaper. Not the outline, the mechanism. A small brass plate was concealed beneath several layers of paint near the floor. I scraped away the surface. 2 screws. Old, but not as old as the building. I loosened them. The plate came away. Behind it was a narrow cavity, empty, except for a length of black electrical cable. Modern. I pulled it gently. Something clicked inside the wall. The room went silent. Then I heard a faint mechanical sound, not from the wall. From behind the mirror I turned. The new rectangular mirror trembled only once, then stopped. I approached it. There was a tiny gap behind the lower frame. I pressed. The mirror shifted outward by perhaps half an inch. I froze. A concealed compartment. Not large. Large enough for papers. Large enough for a hand. Large enough for a secret. I reached behind the frame. My fingers touched something. Paper. I pulled it free. An envelope. Old sealed. No name. Only 3 words written across the front. Room 340 remembers. I stood there, holding it. The hotel corridor outside was silent. Then footsteps approached. I slipped the envelope into my coat. The door handle moved. I stepped back. The door opened. James Avery stood there. He looked at me, then at the mirror, then at the place where the envelope had been. His expression told me one thing. He knew exactly what I had found. And suddenly I understood why Wolfe had been so interested in the witnesses. The room was not merely being rearranged to confuse them. Someone was rearranging it to make them remember different versions of the same secret. Somebody had just discovered that I was beginning to remember too. Chapter 3. The guest with the wrong key. There are hotel guests who lose their keys. There are hotel guests who steal keys. There are hotel guests who leave their keys in the door, hand them to strangers, drop them into elevators, and occasionally swallow them after an argument with a spouse. Walter Crane belonged to a more interesting category. He had apparently received a key to room 314 without ever staying there. That discovery reached me at 10:30 the following morning. Shortly after I had finished explaining to Wolfe why the envelope marked room 314 remembers had not yet been opened, his response had been brief. Good. You don't want to know what's inside? I want to know who put it there. You could have said that yesterday. I did. No. Yesterday you said, find the assistants. That was sufficient. Not to me. That is not my responsibility. I had learned long ago that arguing with Wolfe before breakfast was like trying to teach geometry to a cat. I therefore ate another piece of toast. Wolfe was in the orchid room, his attention divided between a tray of seedlings and the documents I had brought from the Hamilton. Morning light entered through the glass panels overhead, touching the leaves and making the droplets on them look more valuable than most jewelry. I placed the envelope on his desk. He did not touch it. Instead, he asked, "Who is Walter Crane?" "That's what I was going to ask you. I have asked you first. You've been reading ahead. I have been thinking. Same thing with you." He gave me a look. "Mr. Goodwin." "Yes? The man you are seeking is Walter Crane. How do you know?" "Because Peter Lang is not the only missing name." He reached for a sheet of paper. "The hotel guest records contain an inconsistency." "Another one?" "An important one." He handed it to me. It was a photocopy of the registration ledger. A name had been circled. Walter Crane. Room 417. Check-in Wednesday. Check-out Friday. I read it twice. "That's our man?" "No." I looked up. "Then why circle him?" "Because he was also issued a key to 3 for 14. I stared at the page. "That's impossible." Wolfe's eyebrows rose. "You used that word before. It keeps turning out to be useful." "No, it keeps turning out to be inaccurate." He handed me another sheet. A key control record. There it was. Room issued. Wednesday 8:17 p.m. Guest. Walter Crane. I looked at the registration. Room 14. Then the key record. Room 14. Who issued it? That is your next question. I am becoming efficient. I stood. Who is Crane? A businessman. What kind? Property investments. I stopped. Property? Wolfe nodded. Interesting. You think the hotel is connected to the property business? I think Room 34 has developed an interest in property. That's not what I meant. I know. He turned back toward orchids. Go to the Hamilton. And Crane? Find him. Where? That is why I am sending you. I picked up my coat. And the envelope? Leave it. You don't want to open it? Not yet. Why? Because it was hidden for someone. Me? No. Crane? Possibly. Then why did I find it? Wolfe looked at me. Because whoever placed it there did not expect you. The Hamilton Hotel had become noticeably less welcoming since my first visit. Bellamy was waiting in the lobby. You found something. I found Walter Crane. Mr. Crane? You know him? Yes. Good. Bellamy's relief lasted approximately 2 seconds. Unfortunately, I don't know where he is. How long has he been a guest? 2 nights. Room 417. Yes, except he was also given a key to 314. Bellamy went pale. Who told you? The hotel records. He looked toward the elevators. Mr. Goodwin, could we speak somewhere private? Certainly. He led me into his office. The blinds were half closed. On his desk sat 3 telephones, 2 computer terminals, and a stack of invoices large enough to support a minor political campaign. Mr. Crane checked in Wednesday evening, Bellamy said. At what time? 7:40. Who handled him? Front desk clerk. Name? Emily Carter. Was Crane alone? Yes. Why was he given a key to 314? I don't know. That's becoming the hotel's favorite answer. Bellamy rubbed his forehead. I did not authorize it. I don't know. Who had access to the key cabinet? Front desk staff, security management. Who was working at 817? Emily Carter. Bring her. Bellamy hesitated. She isn't here. Why? She called in sick. Since when? This morning. Convenient. She has been with us 6 years, so? So she doesn't call in sick. I looked at him. You see the problem? Yes. Good. Emily Carter lived in Brooklyn, or had lived there. Her apartment was empty. The superintendent remembered her. Nice woman. When did she leave? Last night. Where? She didn't say. Did she take luggage? 2 bags? Did she leave anything? The superintendent pointed toward a small pile of mail. I examined it. Bills, advertisements, a letter from a bank. Nothing useful. Then I noticed one envelope addressed to Emily in handwriting that did not belong to any institution. The return address was blank. I turned it over, sealed. I put it back. I had learned enough about mysterious envelopes to stop collecting them without Wolfe. I thanked the superintendent and left. On the sidewalk, I telephoned Wolfe. Emily Carter has disappeared. Expected. You're becoming irritating. How? You keep knowing things before I do. That is the purpose of deduction. I prefer surprise. Then choose another. Profession. I found a letter. Where? Her apartment. Did you open it? No. Good. You're going to tell me to leave it. Yes. Anything else? Walter Crane? That seems to be theme. It is the subject. Back at the Hamilton, I examined the key control system. The clerk's records were precise. Too precise. Every key issued was logged. Every returned key was marked. Every duplicate required authorization. Room 314 had 3 active keys, 1 master key, 1 emergency key, 1 guest key. Except on Wednesday night there had been a 4th, Walter Crane's, and then, at 8:24, another guest key had been issued. 3 fee, no name, no room number, no authorization. Just a handwritten mark in the margin, special. I stared at it. Who wrote that? The desk supervisor, Thomas Reed, shifted uncomfortably. I don't remember. You wrote the log. I wrote most of it. This is your handwriting, I suppose. You don't remember issuing a second key? No. Then, why did you write special? I don't know. Mr. Reed, he looked at me. Have you recently developed a medical condition involving selective memory? No. Good. I pointed to the entry. Who received the key? I don't know. Man or woman? I don't remember. Guest? I don't know. Employee? I don't know. You are having an extraordinary morning. He swallowed. I honestly don't remember. Do you remember Walter Crane? Yes. Why? He was upset. About what? He asked whether room 314 was occupied. And what did you tell him? That it was. By whom? I don't remember. There it was again. The same blank wall. The same convenient absence. I leaned back. Did Mr. Crane ask for the room key? No. Then why did you issue it? I don't remember. Who instructed you? He looked down. I don't remember. I stopped asking. Not because I believed him. Because I didn't. At noon, Wolfe called. Report. Crane received a key to 314. I know. How? The duplicate key record. Of course. Anything else? A second key was issued 8 minutes later. To whom? No one knows who issued it. Thomas Reed. Does he remember? No. Why? He claims he doesn't. That is different. Yes. Did you examine the record? Yes. Is the handwriting his? Yes. Then he remembers. Enough to write it. That's what I thought. Wolfe was silent. Then, where is the key? Not returned. Interesting. That's bad? It is informative. How? 2 people were given access to 314. One was a registered guest. Correct. The other wasn't. Apparently. And neither should have been there. That is my conclusion. No. I frowned. What? That is not your conclusion. What is? You are still thinking of room 314 as a room. What else is it? A location. That's philosophical. No, it is practical. He paused. Ask yourself why someone would need a location inside a hotel without wanting a hotel record. I thought about it. To meet someone, perhaps. To hide something, perhaps. To watch someone, better. To conduct business, better. Illegal business, possibly. I sat down. Wolfe. Yes. Crane is a property businessman. Yes. The room's history involves structural alterations. Yes. The witnesses describe different versions of the room. Yes. And now we have unregistered people using it. Yes. So room 314 may have been used as some kind of private meeting place. That is one possibility. Then why make the room look different? To conceal when and where the meetings occurred. I thought about the furniture, the mirror, the curtains, the sealed door, then the envelope. Room 314 remembers. What if the room was deliberately stored to different historical arrangements? Go on. Someone could make each visitor think he was seeing a different period. Yes. Then later deny the room ever looked that way. Yes, and if witnesses described different versions, their testimony would cancel itself out. Precisely. I smiled. Wolfe. I think we've got it. No. What? We have a mechanism, not the reason. You're impossible. I am a detective. He hung up. That afternoon I found Walter Crane, not in a hotel, at a private club on Park Avenue. He was sitting alone near a window with a newspaper in front of him and a glass of mineral water beside his elbow. He was a handsome man in his early 50s, grey at the temples, broad-shouldered, carefully dressed. When I approached, he looked up. Mr. Goodwin, you know me. I've seen your photograph. Usually that's a disadvantage. I was told you'd come. By whom? He folded the newspaper. I can't tell you. That's becoming fashionable. He looked toward the window. Are you working for the police? No. Nero Wolfe? Yes. That changed his expression. Then I should leave. I sat down opposite him. I wouldn't. Why? Because you're already involved. I have nothing to do with room 314. Then why were you given a key? He stared at me. I wasn't. The hotel record says you were. Records can be altered. By whom? I don't know. Did you enter 314? No. Did you meet Peter Lang? No. Martin Cole? No. Emily Carter? He hesitated. Only for a fraction of a second. Enough. Yes. How? I met her at the hotel. Wednesday. Why? Business. What business? Property. I leaned forward. Which property? He looked at me carefully. You're asking questions outside your authority. I have no authority. Then why answer because you haven't left? He almost smiled. You resemble your reputation. I have no idea what my reputation is. Mr. Wolfe's assistant, that's generally enough. He stood. I remained seated. You are leaving, yes. Why? Because this conversation is finished. It isn't. He reached for his coat. Mr. Crane. He stopped. One question. What? Why were you afraid when I mentioned room 314? His expression hardened. I wasn't. Yes, you were. He looked at me for several seconds. Then he said quietly, because someone died there once. I stood. Who? He shook his head. That is the wrong question. What's the right one? Who was supposed to die there? Then he walked away. I let him go. There are moments when following someone is less useful than remembering exactly what he said. I remembered every word. At 6 that evening I returned to the brownstone. Wolfe was in his office. The smell of roast duck drifted from the kitchen. I told him everything. He listened without interruption. When I finished, he asked, Did Crane say who died? No. Did he identify the year? Did he explain his connection to Emily Carter? No. Did he say why he received the key? No. Then what did you learn? He was frightened. Room 314. That is not new. He said someone died once. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. And? He said the wrong question was who died. What was the right question? Who was supposed to die? Wolfe leaned back. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he looked toward the dining room. Fritz. Yes, sir. 5 minutes. Yes, sir. Wolfe turned to me. Goodwin. Yes? We have been assuming that room 14 was used to conceal a person. Yes, we were wrong. Then what? An event. What event? The disappearance of a person. I frowned. You mean, no, Martin Cole? No. Then who? Wolfe reached for the hotel records. The man who was supposed to die. He opened the old registration ledger. That is the secret. I looked over his shoulder. There, buried beneath decades of hotel entries, was a name I had not seen before. A guest registered in room 14 years earlier. A guest whose stay ended abruptly. A guest whose name had later been removed from the hotel's active records, and beside his name in faint pencil someone had written, transferred to 417. I stared. Room 417, the same room Walter Crane occupied now, the room where the hotel claimed nothing connected to 314. Wolfe closed the ledger. Now, he said, we know why Crane had the wrong key, because room 314 and 417 are connected. No. He looked at me. Because someone wants us to believe they are not. Outside, a taxi horn sounded. Fritz entered with dinner. Wolfe turned toward the table. For the moment, the mystery could wait, but only for the moment, because room 314 had just acquired a fourth room in its history, and this one had a guest who was not merely missing. He had apparently been moved from one room to another 14 years ago. The hotel had records proving it. The hotel also had records proving nothing unusual had happened. Both records could not be true, unless someone had been changing the hotel one room at a time. Chapter 4. The furniture leaves a trail. The trouble with furniture is that it remembers. Not in the sentimental sense. Chairs do not mourn the people who sat in them. Desks do not dream about letters written upon them. And hotel beds have never, to my knowledge, developed an opinion about the guests. But furniture leaves marks, scratches, dust lines, impressions in carpets, small differences in polish where something has stood for years. A chair can tell you where it was moved. A desk can tell you what was hidden inside it. And if you are dealing with a room like 314, where the furniture has apparently been changing its mind for 14 years, those marks become witnesses. They are also harder to intimidate. At 8:40 the next morning I was back at the Hamilton Hotel. I had slept badly. Not because I was worried about Walter Crane, a businessman who says he knows nothing about a room and then tells you that somebody was supposed to die there, has already made his own contribution to insomnia. I was thinking about the ledger. 14 years ago, a guest had been registered in room 314. His stay had ended with a notation that he had been transferred to 417. Now, Walter Crane, a property businessman, was occupying 417. Meanwhile, room 314 had been rearranged in the middle of the night. An anonymous key had been issued. An employee had disappeared. Another witness was missing. and someone had hidden an envelope behind a new mirror. It was not the kind of morning in which a man should be expected to enjoy coffee. Fortunately, Fritz was not present. New York had already supplied enough bitterness. Bellamy met me at the entrance. He looked as though he had spent the night sleeping in a filing cabinet. Mr. Goodwin, Mr. Bellamy. Any news about Mr. Crane? No. Martin Cole. Peter Lang, no. He closed his eyes. I was hoping you might have something. I do. What? I want to know where the green armchair went. He stared at me. Why? Because it moved. It belongs in 314. It belonged there. It was returned. Where did it go? I don't know. Then let's find out. He sighed. You think it matters? I think Wolfe thinks it matters. That was enough. Bellamy turned toward the elevators. The armchair had not gone far. That was the first surprise. The second was that the hotel had no record of moving it. We found it on the 5th floor, room 512. Occupied. The door was opened by a young woman in a blue robe who stared at me, then at Bellamy, then at the green armchair behind her. Is there a problem? Bellamy looked astonished. Why is that chair here? The woman shrugged. It was here when I checked in. When? Last night. Bellamy turned to me. I said, may we come in? She stepped aside. The chair stood beside a window, exactly where Helen Price had described the chair in 314. I approached it. The carpet beneath the front legs was clean. Too clean. The chair had been moved recently. I knelt. There was a small crescent of dust on the rear left leg. I rubbed it between my fingers. Plaster dust, not ordinary hotel dust. I looked toward the woman. Did anyone enter after you checked in? Housekeeping. When? About midnight. Anyone else? She thought. A man? Who? I don't know. What did he want? He said he was checking the heating. Was he wearing a uniform? No. Did he touch the chair? She looked at it. I think so. Did he move it? I don't know. Bellamy's face had become gray. I said, what did he look like? Medium height, dark hair, maybe 40. Anything else? He smelled of cigarettes. That eliminated about 3 million New Yorkers. Did he give a name? No. Did he show identification? No. I stood. Thank you. The woman looked at Bellamy. Is this serious? He said. I'm afraid so. I left the room. In the corridor, I said, your hotel has an interesting idea of housekeeping. Bellamy rubbed his forehead. I'll have security review the cameras. Do it. Do you think the man moved the chair? Yes. Why? I don't know yet. The service corridor on the 5th floor connected to the linen room. From there, the furniture elevator descended to the basement. I followed the route. The Hamilton had been built in an era when hotels were designed to hide their machinery from guests. Pipes ran behind walls. Service stairs twisted through narrow passages. Freight elevators opened into rooms that guests never saw. It was an excellent building for secrets. I found the furniture elevator empty. Beside it was a clipboard. I checked the last entries. Room 512. Chair delivered. Room 314. Chair removed. The handwriting was different from the ordinary maintenance records. I read the dates. The chair had been moved from 3:14 to 5:12 at 1:12 a.m. Then, at 3:47 a.m., it had supposedly been returned, except it had not. Someone had entered the return time without moving the chair. I took out my notebook. That was another useful habit. When a record tells you something happened, look at the thing that should have been moved. If it is still there, the record is lying. The furniture elevator descended. I followed. The basement was cooler than the lobby and smelled of starch, detergent, old wood and steam. A maintenance man named George Pritchard was repairing a cart. I showed him the entry. Who moved this? He studied it. Not me. Who? I don't know. Who has access to the elevator? Maintenance. Housekeeping. Security. Anyone else? Management. Did you? No. Did you see it? Yesterday. Where? Storage. Before that? 3rd floor, 314? He nodded. Why was it there? It was waiting. For what? He shrugged. That's what they said. Who? Mr. Bellamy. Bellamy looked at me. I never said that. Pritchard frowned. Someone told me. Who? I don't know. The hotel had become very fond of people who could not remember who gave them instructions. I asked. What else was moved? Desk? What desk? From 342. Last night. Where? Storage. Show me. The storage room was large enough to contain a small village of unwanted furniture. Mattresses stood upright against one wall. Broken lamps occupied shelves. Tables were stacked in pairs. Old paintings leaned against cabinets. The green armchair was absent, but the desk was there. The original writing desk. I recognized it from the photograph Bellamy had shown me. Dark wood, 3 drawers, brass handles, one corner slightly worn, and across the front right leg was a fresh scratch. I crouched. The scratch was narrow, about 4 inches long. Beneath it was a smear of pale paint. Where did this happen? Pritchard shook his head. It wasn't there yesterday. Who moved it? I don't know. I opened the first drawer. Empty. Second. Old hotel stationery. Third. Nothing. I ran my hand beneath the underside of the desk. My fingers found a shallow groove. I stopped. There was something there. A narrow strip of paper had been pushed into the groove and held by a small piece of hardened glue. I pulled it free. 3 numbers. And a time. 208 417 340 1120. I stared at them. Pritchard said, "What is it?" "Something Wolfe will enjoy." I folded the strip and put it in my pocket. Then I examined the scratch again. The pale paint matched the wall near the sealed doorway in 314. I stood. The desk had been dragged through the service corridor. Someone had not merely moved it. They had moved it in a hurry. And the scratch had occurred recently. I called Wolfe. He answered on the first ring. "Yes, I found the desk." "Where?" "Storage, and a strip of paper inside." "What does it say?" 208, 417, 1114. There was silence. Then, "Good. You really have only one response to discoveries. Do you have another?" "Usually something like that's impossible, which is why I have instructed you not to use it," I continued. The green chair was moved to 512. "Why?" "I don't know. It was placed beside the window." "Yes, then it was not moved randomly." "No." "What else?" "The desk has a fresh scratch." "Where?" "Right front leg." "Direction?" I looked at the mark. "Diagonal, from upper left to lower right?" "Yes." "Interesting. What does that mean?" "It means you have not yet looked at the doorway." I glanced toward the basement door. "Which doorway?" "Room 340. "Of course. Go there." "I thought you wanted the numbers first." "I want the room. You're becoming sentimental." "No," he hung up. Room 314 looked innocent. That was its best quality. The chair was back. The desk was gone. The new mirror remained. The curtains were open. The room appeared to have been stripped of one arrangement and prepared for another. I stood in the doorway. Then I did something I had not done before. I did not look at the furniture. I looked through it. The doorway opened onto the room at an angle. From that position, the bed was visible. The window was visible. The mirror was visible. The chair was visible, but the far wall was not. The desk, when positioned against that wall, blocked the line of sight toward the sealed doorway. I moved 2 steps forward. The angle changed. The chair blocked the mirror. I moved backward. The mirror reflected the doorway. I stopped. That was it. The furniture had not been arranged for comfort. It had been arranged to control what could be seen from the door. I called Wolfe again. He answered. "I understand." "You understand what?" "You have seen it." "How did you know?" "Because you stopped talking. I found the line of sight." "Describe it." I did. Wolfe listened. "Now move the chair." I did. Again I moved it. "Now the desk." "It isn't here." "Use the old position." I did. "Can you see the sealed doorway?" "No." "Can you see the mirror?" "Partially. And from the corridor." "The desk blocks the wall." "Exactly." I understood. "Someone standing in the corridor could see the room." "Yes." "But not the sealed doorway." "Yes." "Unless the furniture was moved." "Correct." "Then whoever arranged the furniture was controlling what a person entering the room would notice." "Not merely notice." "What believe?" I looked at the room. Wolfe continued. 3 witnesses described 3 different rooms because each saw a different arrangement. "Yes." "But the arrangements were not accidental." "No." "They were positions." "Positions for what?" "To hide a line of sight." "From whom?" "That is your task." I looked toward the doorway, then toward the mirror, then toward the sealed wall. "Someone standing here could see the chair and desk." "Yes, but not what was behind them." "Yes, unless the furniture moved." "And the people using the room knew that, obviously, that the room wasn't designed to hide a person." "No, something else." "Exactly." I hung up. I spent the next hour reconstructing the room. The old floor plans helped. So did the carpet marks. The desk had occupied 3 positions over the years, one beneath the window, one against the east wall, one near the door. The chair had occupied 2. The mirror had been moved at least once. The curtains had been replaced. Every alteration changed what could be seen from the doorway. That was not interior decoration. It was choreography. A person entering room 314 was meant to look in a particular direction, and not another. I took photographs. Then I returned to the service corridor. There was a narrow passage connecting the basement to the freight elevator. The walls carried old scratches. Furniture had passed through here repeatedly. At one point, the corridor narrowed. A large desk would have had difficulty making the turn. I looked at the paint on the wall. Fresh scrape. Pale paint. Same color as the scratch on the desk. I followed it. The trail led to the freight elevator, then to the 5th floor, then to room 512. The green chair. The furniture had left a trail. Someone had moved the chair and desk through the hotel deliberately. Not to hide them, to create a temporary arrangement somewhere else. A duplicate scene. A second version of room 314. I returned to Bellamy. Has anyone ever used room 512 for private meetings? His expression changed. What makes you ask? Answer, not that I know of. Who occupied it last night? A guest named Ruth Morgan. Who is she? An accountant? Business? Property management? I stared at him. Property. He nodded. Yes. Does Walter Crane know her? I don't know. Does she know Crane? I don't know. Find out. Bellamy reached for the telephone. I stopped him. Not yet. Why? Because if someone is moving furniture to create a second version of room 314, I don't want to warn them that I've noticed. He slowly lowered the receiver. Then what do you want? Access to the old architectural plans. I gave you those. All of them, yes. No. I pointed toward the basement. There are older plans. Bellamy looked uncomfortable. Where? In storage. How do you know? The desk told me. He stared. I smiled. Don't ask. The oldest plans were rolled inside a wooden cabinet beneath the hotel archives. They dated to the building's construction. I spread them across a table. The original 3rd floor was different, very different. Rooms 314, 315, 316, and 318 formed a larger suite arrangement. Then I saw something. A narrow service corridor ran behind the rooms, not shown on the modern plans. I traced it with my finger. What's that? Bellamy leaned over. I've never seen that. Exactly. The corridor connected room 14 to a small space behind the staircase, a service closet. But the dimensions were wrong. Too large. I measured it against the plan. 8 feet by 12. Large enough for a person. Large enough for furniture. Large enough for some to stand unseen. Observation space, I said. Bellamy stared. What? Not a closet. I looked at the doorway notation. There was no door marked from 3 or 14, only a narrow opening from the service corridor, which meant someone could stand behind the wall and observe the room without being seen. The modern plans had erased it. I rolled up the drawing. We're going upstairs. The observation space had been sealed, or appeared to be. We found it behind a section of wall paneling on the 4th floor. The panel was newer than the surrounding wood. Bellamy protested. I can't have you breaking hotel property. I'm not breaking anything. I pressed the edge. The panel opened. Bellamy stepped backward. Inside was a narrow chamber. Dust, old cobwebs, a wooden shelf, and a chair. Not the green armchair. Another chair, small, plain, facing a narrow opening in the wall. The opening looked directly into room 314. I stood there. Suddenly the furniture arrangement made sense. The desk could block the opening. The chair could obstruct it. The mirror could reveal it. The curtains could conceal movement. The room was a stage. The hidden chamber was the audience. Someone could watch room 314 without being seen. I examined the shelf. There were marks where papers had been stored. Several empty spaces. Then I saw a small brass hook. On it hung an old key. Stamped 340. I took it down. Bellamy whispered, How long has that been there? Long enough. I looked through the opening. From this angle, the doorway to 314 was visible. The desk position hid the chamber. The chair position revealed it. The mirror could reveal the person entering. The entire room was designed around sightlines. I suddenly remembered Walter Crane's words. Someone died there once. Who was supposed to die? The question had changed. The room had not been a place where people met. It had been a place where someone watched. And someone had spent years making sure nobody realized they were being watched. At 6:30 I returned to the brownstone. Wolfe was in the dining room. Fritz had prepared roast duck with chestnuts, and the smell alone was enough to convince me that mysteries could wait until dessert. Wolfe looked up. Well, the furniture was positioned to control the line of sight from the doorway. Yes, the hotel has an old observation chamber behind the wall. I know. I stopped. You know? I inferred it. You inferred it? From the furniture. Before I found it? Naturally, I sat. I hate when you do that. You should be grateful. I am considering it. About the chamber, the hidden key, the second room. The chair moved to 512. The desk moved to storage. The strip of paper, the numbers. Wolfe took the paper from me. He read it. 284, Sinfort, 1120. He placed it on the table. Now we have a sequence, room numbers. Yes. What does 208 mean? Find out. 4 to Crane, 314, the room, and 1120. Wolfe looked at me. That is the important one. Why? Because it is not a room, it's a time, yes. On what date? That is what we must discover. He reached for his wine. I said, there is another thing. What? The furniture arrangement was changed before the witnesses were questioned. Yes. Someone wanted their descriptions to conflict. Yes. But why? Wolfe took a sip. Because 3 witnesses who remember different rooms are unreliable, even if they are all telling the truth. Especially then. I understood. If the police decide the witnesses are confused, they stop looking for a common explanation. Correct. And the person controlling the room gets time. Time for what? I looked at the strip of paper. 208, 417, 314. To move something. Wolfe nodded. Or someone. I leaned back. Then I remembered something. The desk scratch. What about it? The paint on the desk matches the wall. Yes. So the desk was moved through the old service passage. Yes, that means whoever moved it knew about the hidden corridor. Obviously. Then the person responsible may be connected to the hotel's old plans. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Or to the person who altered them. I looked at him. You think the current hotel management is involved? No. Why not? Because management has been too careless. That's a strange defense. It is not a defense. What is it? An observation. He folded the strip of paper. The person we are looking for is not merely hiding the truth. What is he doing? He is arranging what other people see. I thought about the chair, the desk, the mirror, the curtains, the witnesses, the observation chamber, and room 314. Then Wolfe said something that made the entire case shift. Mr. Goodwin. Yes? Tomorrow find out what happened at 1120. 14 years ago? Yes. How do you know it's 14 years ago? Because that is when the room changed. I stared at him. The same year the original guest was transferred to 417. Exactly. Then the strip of paper was written 14 years ago. Perhaps. And somebody preserved it. Perhaps. Why? Wolfe looked toward the orchids. Because whoever wrote it expected someone to return. There was a pause. Then I asked, who? Wolfe closed his eyes. The wrong question again. I waited. He opened them. Find out who was supposed to be in room 208 at 1120. I looked down at the paper. 3 rooms, 1 time. A hidden chamber, a missing businessman, a missing hotel employee, and a room that had spent 14 years changing its furniture whenever somebody came too close to the truth. The Hamilton Hotel had not been rearranging room 314. It had been rearranging the evidence. And now, somewhere inside that building, somebody knew that Archie Goodwin had finally noticed the difference. Chapter 5. The view from the door. By 9 o'clock the next morning, Nero Wolfe had turned room 314 into a geometry problem. This was not surprising. Wolfe had always preferred geometry to people. Geometry rarely lied, never argued, and could generally be persuaded to behave if one measured it carefully enough. People were another matter. At breakfast, he had eaten eggs with black truffles, toast with butter, and a portion of smoked trout that Fritz had prepared with enough dignity to make me feel guilty for eating it while standing. Wolfe had eaten in silence. That was unusual. When Wolfe was silent over breakfast, something unpleasant was usually happening inside his head. I waited. Finally, he put down his fork. Mr. Goodwin. Yes? How much time would you estimate it takes a man entering room 314 to notice a person standing in the corridor? Depends on the man. Give me an average. 3 seconds. 2. Long. 2? Still too long. Better. Are we timing people now? We are timing site. He pushed back his chair. Come. Where? The office. That sounds ominous. It is practical. He went upstairs. I followed. The office table had been cleared. On it were 3 copies of the old architectural plan of room 314. Beside them stood a small wooden model of the room. Wolfe had constructed it himself. That was impressive. Wolfe disliked small objects almost as much as he disliked stairs. He had also arranged 3 chairs at different angles around the model, one beside the doorway, one near the window, one behind the wall. I looked at them. You've been busy, obviously. Did you sleep? Yes. How? With my eyes closed. Very helpful. He ignored me. Yesterday you discovered that the furniture controlled the view from the doorway. Yes. That was only the beginning. He pointed to the model. The room had 3 principal arrangements. He indicated the first, the original arrangement. Then the second, the arrangement from 14 years ago. Then the third, the present arrangement. I leaned over. They looked almost identical. That was the trick. Small changes. A chair here, a desk there. A mirror moved several feet. Curtains opened or closed. Nothing that would alarm a casual observer. Everything that would alter a line of sight. Wolfe said, "Stand here." I stood beside the model doorway. "What do you see?" "Decks. Anything beyond it?" "No." "Move 1 foot left." I did. "Does it show the corridor?" He moved the model chair. "Now?" "The wall." "The desk." "Now?" "The sealed doorway." He smiled. "Good." That smile was small. For Wolfe it was practically laughter. The room was not furnished. What? It was staged. I looked at him. For what observation? Of whom? That remains the question. We drove to the Hamilton. Wolfe came with me. This was significant. Wolfe did not visit hotels, unless the hotel contained something he considered more valuable than the effort required to leave the brownstone. The Hamilton apparently qualified. Bellamy met us at the lobby. "Mr. Wolfe." Wolfe nodded. "Mr. Bellamy, I've had the room kept untouched." "Good, and the old plans are ready." "Excellent." Wolfe looked toward the elevators. "I want room 3 Font." We went upstairs. The room had been cleared. The bed had been pushed against the wall. The desk was in storage. The green chair was beside the window. The mirror remained in place. Wolfe stood in the doorway. He did not enter. He looked. For almost a minute he said nothing. Bellamy shifted impatiently. I knew better than to interrupt. Wolfe finally said, "The chair. I moved it 2 inches left. I moved it. Now the desk. The original desk is downstairs. You another." Bellamy brought a temporary table. Wolfe positioned it. Then he moved the mirror, then the curtains, then the chair. When he finished, he stepped into the corridor. "Mr. Goodwin." "Yes, enter." I did. "What do you see?" "The desk." "Only." "The mirror." "What does the mirror show?" "The corridor." "Could you see someone standing outside the door?" "No." "Could they see?" "Yes." "Could you see them through the mirror?" "Not if they stood against the wall." "Exactly." He turned to Bellamy. "Where was Peter Lang found?" "Near the bathroom." "Where was Martin Cole standing when he entered?" "Near the doorway." "Where was James Avery?" "Outside the room." "And Helen Price?" "Across the left corridor." Wolfe looked at me. 3 witnesses, 3 positions, 3 views, 3 versions of the room. "Precisely." He stepped toward the window. "Now close the curtains." I did. The room changed. It became darker. The desk disappeared into shadow. The mirror reflected only a strip of wall. Wolfe said, "This is the second arrangement." He repositioned the chair, then the desk, then the mirror. "Now enter." I did. I saw the green chair, the window, the curtains. The desk was barely visible. I understood. "This is Helen Price's room." "Yes." "She saw the chair and curtains." "Yes." "But not the hidden opening." "Correct." He moved the chair again. "Now the desk. Nothing else?" "No." Martin Cole. I looked at him. "He saw the room before it was changed, or after it was changed." "What?" "The point is not when. The point is what. What each person was allowed to see." Bellamy watched us from the doorway. He looked disturbed. "Mr. Wolfe." "Yes?" "Are you saying someone deliberately arranged the room?" "Yes." "Why?" "That is what I am attempting to determine." Bellamy swallowed. "Could it have been the renovations?" "No." "Why?" "This do not rearrange themselves after midnight." "I meant the original design." "No." "Then what?" Wolfe looked at him. "Your hotel has been used for something other than lodging." Bellamy's face tightened. "Such as observation of guests, perhaps." "Why would anyone observe guests?" "That is another question." Bellamy looked at me. Said, "You hired Wolfe." "Yes." Let him ask questions." Wolfe then asked for the old photographs. Bellamy brought a box from the archives. Inside were photographs of the hotel from different years. Exterior, lobby, dining room, ballroom, 3rd floor, room 314. The photographs were mostly black and white. Wolfe spread 3 across the bed. The first showed room 314 14 years ago. The desk beneath the window. The green armchair against the south wall. Heavy curtains. The second showed the room after renovation. The desk against the east wall. The chair beside the window. Lighter curtains. The third showed the room 3 years ago. Desk near the door. Chair against the opposite wall. Mirror moved. Wolfe compared them. Interesting. What? Thing was changed without a reason, except the reason wasn't decoration. Correct. He pointed to the first photograph. Look at the mirror. I did. It faced the door. Now the second. It faced the window. Now the third. It faced the opposite wall. 3 mirrors, 3 directions, 3 different reflections. The mirror was not for the person in the room. It was for someone watching from elsewhere, I said. The observation chamber. Wolfe nodded. Exactly. He turned toward the hidden opening. From the chamber, the mirror could reveal the doorway, but depending on its angle, it could also conceal the observer. Whoever stood in that chamber could watch people entering, I said. Yes, without being seen. Yes. And the furniture was arranged so the person entering would not notice the opening. Yes. But why allow 3 witnesses to see different things? Wolfe looked at me. Because each witness was supposed to carry away a different memory. Why? To make them useful. Useful to whom? That is the heart of the matter. We returned to the brownstone that afternoon. Wolfe had the dining room table covered with maps, hotel records, photographs, and architectural plans. Fritz brought lunch. Wolfe ate roast pheasant with mushrooms. I ate a sandwich, I complained. Wolfe ignored me. He was examining a list of guests who had stayed at the Hamilton during the final week, before the old room arrangement changed. What's that, names? Whose? Guests from 14 years ago. Yes. Any familiar? He pointed. Walter Crane. I stared. Crane was there? Yes. When? 14 years ago. I took the paper. Walter Crane. Room 208. 1120. I looked at Wolfe. The strip. He nodded. 208. Ford and 17. 340. 1120. Crane was in 208 at 1120. Yes. 14 years ago. Yes. And later he was transferred to 417. Yes. And now he received a key to 314. Yes. I sat down. Then Crane knows. Probably. Knows what? That is what we need to discover. I looked at the guest list. There were 5 names marked in pencil. Walter Crane, Peter Lang, Martin Cole, a man named Richard Holt, and a woman named Eleanor Voss. I knew 3. I did not know the last 2. Who are Holt and Voss? Wolfe looked at the list. That is what I want you to find out. By 4 o'clock I had found Eleanor Voss. She had been a secretary at the Hamilton 14 years ago. Now she lived in Manhattan and worked as a private records consultant. She agreed to meet me in a coffee shop. When I gave her Wolfe's name, she immediately agreed. You are investigating room 314. Yes, she looked toward the window. I knew someone would. Why? Because Walter Crane has returned. I leaned forward. What do you know about him? Enough. Did he use room 14 years ago? No, but he was in the hotel. Yes. Room 208. Yes. At 1120. Her face changed. You have the paper? Yes. Where? I found it. She looked at me. Then you found the desk. How do you know? Because that's where it was hidden. I sat back. You know the desk? Everyone who worked there knew it. What was it used for? Nothing. Nothing. That was the point. She lowered her voice. The desk was always moved. Why? So no one would know where it had been. I frowned. That makes no sense. It does if you know what was inside. What was inside? She shook her head. I never saw. But you knew? I knew there was something. What? I don't know. Who did? She hesitated. Mr. Harcourt, the original owner. Did he own the hotel? Yes. Who else knew? The manager who was manager. Charles Court's nephew. Samuel Harcourt. I wrote it down. What happened to him? Dead. When? 13 years ago. 1 year after the renovation. Yes. How? She looked at me. Heart attack. Convenient. She frowned. It was a heart attack. Of course, she continued. After he died, everything changed. What changed? The rooms. 314? Yes. Why? Because nobody knew what was hidden there. I stared at her. Nobody? Who knew? She looked directly at me. Mr. Crane. I returned to the brownstone. Wolfe listened. When I finished, he asked, did she say what was hidden? No. Did she know? She claimed not to. Did you believe her mostly? Mostly is not enough, I know. He looked at the guest list again. Holt. Richard Holt? Yes. Who was he? Lawyer 14 years ago, yes. Connected to Harcourt, apparently. Find him. He's dead. Wolfe looked up. When? 14 years ago. How? Car accident. Interesting. Too many deaths. Not too many. What do you mean? Too many convenient deaths. He returned to the list. Now we have 3 people who saw pieces of the same event. Crane, yes. Voss, yes. And Holt, yes. 2 are dead, apparently, and Crane is alive, apparently, and Peter Lang. Missing. Martin Carter? Missing. Wolfe looked at me. Do you see the pattern? People disappear after getting close to 314. No. He tapped the old photograph. People disappear after seeing the wrong thing. That evening I returned to the Hamilton alone. I wanted to see the room one more time. The corridor was quiet. Room 314 was dark. I unlocked it. Inside, the air smelled of old wood and hotel soap. I closed the door. Then I stood where a guest would stand. The room looked ordinary, too ordinary. I moved toward the desk position. The mirror caught my reflection. I turned. For a second I saw someone in the corridor. A shadow. I opened. Nobody. The corridor was empty. I closed it. Then I noticed something. The mirror had been turned slightly. Not much. Enough. The angle now reflected the corridor behind me. I stared. Someone had adjusted it recently. I stepped closer. In the mirror I could see the doorway. And beyond the doorway, the corridor. But I could also see the edge of the observation chamber. The hidden opening. Whoever had turned the mirror had made one mistake. They had exposed the chamber. I crossed the room. I opened the panel. The chamber was empty, except for a small object on the shelf. A cigarette. Still warm. I touched it. Fresh. Someone had been there moments ago. I stepped back. Then I heard footsteps. Not in the corridor. Inside the wall. I froze. A soft movement. Then a click. The hidden panel behind me closed. I was inside the observation chamber. For perhaps 3 seconds I could see nothing. Then the narrow opening became visible. Room 314. The doorway. The bed. The mirror. The corridor. And someone standing outside. A man. He entered. He closed the door. Then he turned toward the wall. Toward me. I could not see his face clearly, but I recognized his voice. Mr. Goodwin. I stepped toward the opening. Walter Crane. He looked directly at the hidden chamber. I was hoping you would come. I opened the panel. He was gone. The room door was still locked. I ran into the corridor. Empty. I returned to 3 Fort. The mirror had been moved again. This time it reflected the desk that was still in storage. I stood there, breathing hard. Then I saw the writing on the mirror. Not written on the glass. Condensation. 4 words. You are looking too late. I called Wolfe. He answered. Yes. Crane was here. Where room 314? Did he speak? Yes. What did he say? He knew I was in the observation chamber. Wolfe was silent. Then, good, I nearly shouted. Would you stop saying that? No. What does it mean? It means the room is no longer being used merely to hide the past. What is it being used for? Wolfe's voice was quiet. To watch us investigate it. I looked at the mirror. The words were already fading, and suddenly I understood the most disturbing part. The witnesses had not been allowed to see pieces of the truth by accident. They had been selected. Someone had chosen them. Someone had watched them enter room 314. Someone had recorded what each of them saw, and now that same person had watched me. Wolfe spoke again. Mr. Goodwin. Yes? Come home. Why? Because tomorrow we determine why 3 people were allowed to see 3 different versions of one room. And what then? Then we find out what all 3 were meant to remember. He hung up. I looked once more at room 314. The room was empty. The furniture was gone. The mirror reflected only the doorway. Yet for the first time I was certain that somebody was watching. The strange part was not that I could not see him. The strange part was that I had finally realized he wanted me to know he was there. Chapter 6. The Ledger in the Linen Room. There are 2 kinds of hotel records. The first kind is intended to tell the truth. The second kind is intended to make the truth difficult to find. At the Hamilton Hotel, both kinds were kept in the same building, sometimes in the same room, and occasionally by the same person. I had reached the conclusion that this was not an accident. It was Thursday morning, and I was back in the hotel's basement before most of the guests had finished their coffee. The service corridors were quiet except for the steady rumble of pipes and the occasional metallic complaint from somewhere behind the walls. I had come looking for the old linen records. Wolfe had sent me with instructions that were characteristically brief. Find what the hotel forgot to destroy. That was all. I had asked him whether he had a particular record in mind. No. Then how will I know it? You won't. Excellent, Mr. Goodwin. Yes, look for something that has survived because nobody considered it important. That was Wolfe's way of telling me where to look. The discarded linen records were kept in a narrow room beside the laundry. There were boxes of inventory sheets, sheets of housekeeping reports, towel counts, mattress inspections, curtain replacements, and enough complaints about missing pillowcases to provide material for a minor novel. A clerk named Samuel Pierce was sorting old files. Looking for something, an old ledger. Which one? I don't know, he smiled. That narrows it down. How many? About 20. Which ones concern room 314? He stopped smiling. Why? Because I'm asking. He pointed toward the back wall. Those. There were 6 ledgers. I opened the first, linen; second, laundry; third, housekeeping; fourth, inventory; fifth, maintenance; sixth, guest service. I opened the 6th, nothing. I opened the maintenance book, nothing. Then I noticed that the 5th ledger had been placed beneath a stack of old towels. I pulled it out. It was heavier than the others. Its cover was cracked. The pages smelled of dust and damp paper. I opened it. At first there was nothing unusual. Room repairs, water leaks, broken lamps, furniture movement. Then I saw the number, 314. I turned the page. Another entry, 314. Another, then another. I sat down. The room had been recorded as vacant on every one of those dates, yet the linen ledger showed someone had occupied it. Not officially, unofficially. The first entry read, March 14, 12 years ago. Room 314, occupant H. Bell. 2 linen sets, no charge. The second, June 7, room 340, occupant R. Cole. 1 linen set, no charge. The third, September 19, room 340, occupant J. Mercer, no linen. The fourth, November 2, room 314, W. Crane. I stopped. Walter Crane again. I turned the page. There were more. Names. Dates. Room 3 always listed as vacant in the main hotel records. I photographed every page. Then I called Wolfe. He answered. I found it. What? The record you wanted. I did not know what you would find. You knew I would find something. That is different. It's a ledger. Where? Linen room. What does it show? Room 314 was repeatedly occupied while officially vacant. Names? Several. Read them. I did. He was silent. Then I read the last one. Walter Crane's. Any company names? Not yet. Look at the margins. I did. There were initials. Beside several names was a small mark. A circle with a line through it. There's a symbol. Describe it. I did. Good. That again. Continue. I turned the page. The names repeated, but the initials beside them formed a pattern. H. Bell, R. Cole, J. Mercer, W. Crane, Evos, R. Holt. I looked at them. The names we had already encountered. And beside them, in a different hand, were 3 letters. I said, I've got a company. What company? American Property Consolidated. Wolfe did not answer. Know it? Yes. How? Because it owned the building. I sat very still. The Hamilton? Indirectly. How indirectly? Find the ownership records. I closed the ledger. You already knew. I suspected. That's not the same thing. No. You're enjoying this. No. You're lying. Possibly. He hung up. American Property Consolidated had changed names twice. Its records were complicated. Its ownership structure was worse. The company had been formed 14 years earlier. It had acquired several properties in Manhattan, including a group of buildings controlled through subsidiary companies. The Hamilton was among them. Then, 3 years later, ownership had changed. A new company appeared, Mercer Holdings, then another, Northbridge Property Group, then another, Harcourt Urban Assets. The names were different, the addresses were similar, the directors overlapped. I took the records to Bellamy. Do you know these companies? He looked at the papers. I've heard of them. Which one owned the Hamilton? That depends on the year. Exactly. He sighed. Mr. Goodwin, hotel ownership is complicated. Not this complicated. It is. Who was the actual owner? He hesitated. Charles Harcourt. 14 years ago? Through American Property Consolidated? Yes. And after him? Samuel Harcourt. The nephew? Yes. Then Mercer Holdings? Eventually. And Walter Crane? Bellamy looked at. Why are you asking? Because his name appears in the hotel records. Bellamy said nothing. I watched him, Mr. Bellamy. Yes. Was Crane ever employed by American Property Consolidated? I don't know. Was he a shareholder? I don't know. Did he negotiate property purchases for them? I don't know. Was he involved in the transfer of the Hamilton? I don't know. His voice had become very quiet. I said, "You know something. I know that people ask questions about old ownership records. Who? Lawyers. Which lawyers? I don't know. Always." He looked at me. "Mr. Goodwin, there are things about this hotel I would prefer not to discuss." "Because you're involved?" "No." "Because you're afraid?" He did not answer. That was answer enough. I returned to the ledger. The entries were more extensive than I had first realized. Room 314 had been used for meetings at irregular intervals. No guest charges, no housekeeping assignments, no telephone records, no official occupants. Yet linen had been delivered, furniture had been moved, keys had been issued, and someone had maintained the room. The pattern was deliberate. I traced the dates. Some were weeks apart, others months. Then I noticed something. Each date corresponded to a property transaction. I had the property records with me. A building sold, a company formed, a mortgage transferred, a title amended, a partnership dissolved. Every time something important happened in the ownership records, room 314 had been used. It was a private meeting place, not for hotel guests. For documents, I called Wolfe. "I know what 314 was used for." "Tell me." "Property transactions." "Explain." "Every unofficial occupancy corresponds with a property transfer." "Whose properties?" "Mostly Manhattan buildings." "Who attended?" "Names from the ledger." "Crane, yes. Voss, yes. Holt, yes. Who else?" "Several people I haven't identified." "Do that." I turned another page. There were initials, names, then a notation, "documents delivered." Another, "agreement returned." Another, "copies destroyed." I stopped. "Copies destroyed." "Yes." "Anything else?" "One entry says original retained." "By whom?" I read the name. Archie Wolfe was silent. "Martin Cole, yes. He's missing, apparently. Now we know why." "Perhaps." I frowned. "Well, yes. If these people were transferring property documents in secret, why did they need 3 different versions of the room?" "Because the room was not only a meeting place. It was a screening room." "Explain." "Each visitor could be shown a different arrangement." "Yes, and each arrangement could correspond to a different purpose." "Continue." "One person might enter and see a desk." "Yes." "Another sees a chair." "Yes." "A third sees the balcony or the mirror." "Yes." "And none knows what the others saw." "Exactly. So the room allowed them to meet without appearing to meet." "Better." "Documents could be passed through the hidden chamber." "Yes." "And the person receiving them could leave through another route." "Correct." I stared at the ledger. "Then the room was a blind exchange." Wolfe's voice became quieter. "Now you are thinking. That afternoon I searched for the people named in the ledger. Bell was Henry Bell, a solicitor who had died 10 years earlier. R. Cole was Martin Cole. J. Mercer was Jonathan Mercer, former director of Mercer Holdings. E. Voss was Eleanor Voss. R. Holt was Richard Holt, the lawyer killed in the car accident. W. Crane was Walter Crane. The pattern was becoming unpleasantly clear. The people associated with Room 14 were not random. They were the people who had handled ownership documents. The hotel had been used as a private transfer point. But there was still a problem. Why had the room's furniture been altered? Why had witnesses been allowed to see different arrangements? Why had anonymous invitations been sent? And why had someone recreated the room now? The answer could not simply be old property fraud. Something had brought the old operation back to life. That something was happening now. At 5, I found Walter Crane again. This time, he was not at the club. He was standing outside a law office on Madison Avenue. He saw me immediately. "You've found the ledger." I stopped. "How do you know?" "Because you are smiling." "I always smile." "Not when you're working." I stepped closer. "Did you use room 314? He said, "Nothing, 14 years ago." Still nothing. "Did you meet Richard Holt?" He looked away. "Martin Cole?" "Nothing." "Eleanor Voss?" His jaw tightened. "American Property Consolidated?" "That did it." He looked at me. "You should leave." "Why?" "Because you're close enough to what?" "The truth. That's usually where detectives like to be." "This isn't a game." "I know. You don't." He glanced toward the law office. "Some records were transferred through that room." "Property records?" "Yes." "Because offices keep records." "The hotel didn't?" "The hotel kept records we could control." And room 314? Room 314 kept no records, I said, except the linen ledger. He smiled without humor. Someone failed to destroy it. Who, not me? Who was supposed to? He looked toward the street. Then he said, Charles Harcourt. The name caught me. The original owner? Yes. He's dead. Yes. Then who is doing this now? Crane's face changed. That's the question you should be asking. You know. I know enough to be afraid. Of whom? He stepped closer. Not the person using room 314. Then who? The person who owns what room 314 was designed to protect. Before I could ask another question, he walked away. I returned to the brownstone at 7. Wolfe was in the orchid room. The evening light had faded, and the lamps cast a warm glow over the plants. He was watering a rare orchid with the concentration of a man defusing a bomb. I told him about Crane. He listened. When I finished, he said, Interesting. That's new. No. Then why say it? Because it is. I handed him the ledger. He read it slowly. Every page, every name, every date, every notation. He reached the final entry. His expression changed. I watched him. What? He pointed. The last line read, Room 314, Occupant, W. Crane. Documents delivered. Original retained, 11:20. Below it, in another hand, Do not repeat. Wolfe looked at me. The meeting 14 years ago. Yes. Was not the final meeting. What? The instruction says, Do not repeat. Meaning? It was a warning. To whom? Whoever inherited the documents. I thought about Crane. Crane? Perhaps. Then why return now? Because someone else has returned. Who? Wolfe closed the ledger. That is what we are going to determine. He turned toward the door. Tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? We find out who has been using room 314 during the current investigation. And if we find them, then we ask why. I smiled. You know, Wolfe, sometimes I think you enjoy this. He gave me a cold look. I enjoy orchids. Of course. I tolerate mysteries. And murder? I tolerate murder less. Good to know. He picked up the ledger again. Mr. Goodwin. Yes? There is one thing you have overlooked. What? Room 314 was not being used to transfer documents. I frowned. The ledger proves it. No. Then what? Wolfe turned a page. He pointed to the notation. Original retained. Documents were being transferred. Yes. But the original was never transferred. Meaning, someone was using room 314 to separate copies from originals. I stared at him. Why? Because whoever possessed the original possessed the power. Over the property? Over the proof. I understood. The room was not a place where ownership changed. It was a place where evidence changed hands. Copies could be passed. Signatures could be compared. Records could disappear. But one original document remained somewhere outside the system. The person who possessed it could prove everything. I looked at the ledger. Then the entire hotel operation was built around one missing document. Wolfe nodded. And someone has begun rearranging room 340 because they believe that document is still hidden there. The room suddenly seemed colder. I thought of the desk, the chair, the mirror, the observation chamber, the hidden key, the anonymous invitations, the missing witnesses. Walter Crane's fear. Then I remembered the message written on the mirror. You are looking too late, I said. They think the document is still in the room. Yes. And they are searching for it. Yes. Which means the furniture movements are not meant only to deceive us. No, they are searching for something. Correct. I looked at the ledger again. Then why have they allowed us to find all this? Wolfe's expression became very still. They haven't. What? They are allowing us to find what they want us to find. I stared at him. The distinction was small. The implication was enormous. The ledger, the furniture, the witnesses, the missing people, even the clues. Someone had been controlling the investigation from the beginning. And if Wolfe was right, then room 314 had never merely been hiding the past. It had been manufacturing a version of it. Wolfe closed the ledger. Tomorrow, Archie, we stop following the trail. Why? Because the trail is being laid for us. He looked toward the orchids. We will make them follow us instead. And for the first time since the case began, I had the uncomfortable feeling that the person Watching Room 314 might soon discover what happened when the watcher became the watched. Chapter 7. Wolfe reconstructs the night. By 10 o'clock the next morning, Wolfe had converted the brownstone into a courtroom. There was no judge, no jury, no witness stand, and no law that I could identify. But there were chairs. That was enough. Wolfe had arranged them in the office with the care he normally reserved for orchid pots. Inspector Kramer occupied the largest chair near the fireplace, looking as though someone had tricked him into attending a meeting where he expected to be arrested for something. Bellamy sat beside him. Thomas Reed, the desk clerk, had been placed near the door. The housekeeper, Martha Hale, sat opposite. Eleanor Voss had taken a chair beside the bookcase. Walter Crane stood near the window. Peter Lang was not there. Neither was Martin Cole. I had not expected either. The three original witnesses were present, however. Helen Price sat stiffly with her handbag in her lap. James Avery looked annoyed. Richard Denton looked frightened. Inspector Kramer looked at all of them as if he had been promised a murder and delivered a committee meeting. He turned to me. "Goodwin, Inspector, what is this?" "Wolfe. That explains the furniture. It doesn't explain the people." "It will, when he starts." Kramer grunted. "That's what worries me." The door opened. Wolfe entered. He wore his dark blue dressing gown, which meant that either the case had become very important or he had decided that trousers were unnecessary. He took his place behind his desk. He looked at the assembled group, then at me. "Mr. Goodwin." "Yes, close the door." I did. Wolfe settled into his chair. "Nobody leaves." Kramer raised an eyebrow. "I'll decide that." Wolfe looked at him. "No." Kramer stared. I hid a smile. Wolfe continued. "Inspector, if you wish to arrest someone, you may do so after I finish. That's generous." "I am generous," Kramer snorted. "You charge by the hour. That is business." I moved to the side of the desks. Wolfe folded his hand. "The mystery of room 314 has been treated as though it concerned a room." Nobody spoke. "It does not," Kramer said. "Here we go." Wolfe ignored him. "It concerns sight." He looked at Helen Price. "Mrs. Price, you described a green armchair." She nodded. "Yes." Mr. Avery described a writing desk beneath the window. "Yes." Mr. Denton described heavy curtains. "Yes, you are all correct." The three witnesses exchanged glances. Kramer leaned forward. "Then why did their statements contradict one another?" "They did not contradict one another. They described different rooms." "No." Wolfe's voice remained calm. "They described different arrangements of the same room." He reached for a folder. I knew what was inside. Photographs, floor plans, furniture diagrams, key records, the old ledger, and the narrow strip of paper found inside the desk. Wolfe placed the first photograph on the desk. Room 314. He placed a second beside it. Same room. Then a third. Again. The photographs showed three different arrangements. Green chair, writing desk, curtains, mirror, all different. Kramer frowned. "Furniture gets moved." "Yes. So?" "The important question is why." Wolfe looked at Bellamy. "Mr. Bellamy, when was the furniture moved?" "During maintenance." "Who ordered it?" "I don't know." "Who authorized it?" "I don't know." "Who moved it?" "I don't know." Kramer glanced at me. "Do you hear that?" "Yes." "Everybody at this hotel has amnesia," Wolfe said. "Not everybody." The room became quiet. He turned to Thomas Reed. "You issued a key to room 314. Reed swallowed. "Yes. To Walter Crane. I don't remember." "You wrote his name." "I know." "Then you remember." "I remember writing it." "Why?" "I don't know." Wolfe looked at him for several seconds. Then he said, "You were told to issue it." Reed stared. "Yes." "By whom?" Reed looked toward Bellamy. Bellamy shook his head. "I didn't." Wolfe said, "I did not ask you, Mr. Bellamy." Bellamy lowered his eyes. Reed finally said, "Mr. Harcourt." Kramer sat up. "Which Harcourt?" "Samuel." "The former manager?" "Yes." "He's dead." "I know." "Then how did he instruct you?" Reed's face had gone pale. "He didn't." Wolfe said, "Good." Kramer turned toward him. "What's good about it?" "Mr. Reed has finally begun to distinguish between what he remembers and what he was told." Reed looked miserable. Wolfe continued. "Samuel Harcourt did not personally issue the instruction." "No." "Someone used his authority." "Yes." "Someone who knew how the hotel operated." Reed nodded. "Who?" "I don't know." Wolfe turned to the housekeeper. "Martha Hale." She straightened. "Yes?" "You moved the green chair." "No." "You supervised its movement." "Followed instructions." "From whom?" She looked at Bellamy, then at Kramer, then down at her hands. "From the office." "Whose office?" Bellamy's. Bellamy said sharply. I never told you to move that chair. I know. Then why did you? Because the instruction was on the maintenance sheet. Wolfe nodded. Exactly. He looked at me. The person who altered the room did not need to move the furniture personally, I said. He needed only to issue instructions. Correct. Kramer frowned. So the housekeeper did it. No. Wolfe turned toward him. The housekeeper followed an instruction. The question is who could place instructions into the hotel's system without causing suspicion. Kramer leaned back. Bellamy? Wolfe shook his head. Not him. Reed? No. Hale? No. Then who? Wolfe looked at Walter Crane. Crane's face was expressionless. Mr. Crane. Crane said nothing. You knew the hotel? Yes. You knew room 314? Yes. You knew the old furniture arrangements? Yes. You knew the observation chamber? Crane's eyes moved toward him. Yes. You knew the old ownership records? Yes. And you knew the people who had used the room? Crane did not answer. Wolfe waited. Finally, Crane said, yes. Kramer leaned forward. Then perhaps we can save time. Wolfe looked at him. No. Why? Because Mr. Crane is not the person who controlled the room. Kramer looked irritated. Then who was? Wolfe's eyes moved to Eleanor Voss. She lowered her head. Mrs. Voss. She looked up. Yes. You worked at the Hamilton 14 years ago. Yes. You knew the old plans. Yes. You knew about the observation chamber. Yes. You knew which furniture arrangement concealed it. Yes. You knew the property transactions. She hesitated. Yes, you knew Walter Crane. Yes. You knew Richard Holt. Yes. You knew Martin Cole. Yes. And you knew where the hotel kept the old records. She said nothing. Wolfe leaned back. Mrs. Voss, you were the only surviving person who knew every arrangement of room 314. She shook her head. That's not true. Who else? She did not answer. Samuel Harcourt? Dead. Richard Holt? Martin Cole? Missing. Peter Lang? Missing. She looked at Crane. Mr. Crane. Mr. Crane knew the room, yes. But he did not know the hotel's current systems. Mr. Bellamy knows the current systems. Yes. But he does not know the original purpose of the room. No. Mrs. Hale knows the furniture, yes. Not the property records. No. Mr. Reed knows the keys, yes, but not the old plans. No. Wolfe folded his hands. You alone knew all four. Mrs. Voss was silent. Kramer said, that's enough for me. No. Why not? Because she did not do it. Kramer stared at him. Then why have you just spent 10 minutes proving she could? Because ability is not guilt. You're enjoying this. No, you are, perhaps. Kramer looked at me. Does he always do this? Only when he's awake. Wolfe opened the old ledger. The hotel records say, room 314 was vacant on the nights when these people entered it. He placed the ledger beside the official register. The linen records say otherwise. Kramer examined the pages. These entries are old. Yes. Why were they kept? Because nobody thought they mattered. Who made them? Housekeeping. Kramer looked at Martha Hale. She shook her head. I wasn't working there then. Who was? Mrs. Voss. All eyes turned toward Eleanor Voss. She looked exhausted. I kept linen records. Why? Because the hotel required them. Did you know the room was being used? Yes. Did you know by whom? Sometimes. Did you record the names? I wrote what I was told. By whom? She looked at Wolfe. Samuel Harcourt. Wolfe nodded. Now we come to the important distinction. He pointed to the ledger. The names were not guest names. What were they? Kramer asked. Names used to create a trace. Kramer frowned. A trace? Enough information to identify the person who received the document, but not enough to prove who met him. I said, a blind exchange. Wolfe nodded. Exactly. He looked at Crane. Mr. Crane entered room 314. Crane said nothing. Someone else entered through the service corridor. Still nothing. A document was transferred. Crane's jaw tightened. Another person left. Kramer said, what document? Answer. He reached for the strip of paper. 208 for 17. 3 this. Kramer read it. What does it mean? Room 208. Yes. Room 417. Yes. Room 314. Yes. 1120. Yes. Those were the positions of the participants on the night the original transfer occurred. Kramer looked at Crane. You were in 208. Crane nodded. At 1120. Yes. You later occupied 417. Yes. And someone used 314. Crane looked down. Yes. Who? Crane said nothing. Wolfe did not press him. Instead he said, the furniture tells us. He stood. That alone made everyone else straighten. Wolfe rarely stood during an explanation. When he did, I had learned to pay attention. He went to the large wall map of the Hamilton. At 11:20, a person standing in room 208 could reach the service corridor. He traced the route. From there, he could reach the observation chamber. Then he indicated room 314. Someone inside 314 could not see the corridor if the desk was beneath the window. He moved his hand. But if the desk was moved here, the corridor became visible in the mirror. He pointed. The chair blocked the direct view. He shifted again. The curtains controlled the reflection. He looked at Kramer. 3 arrangements, Kramer said. 3 witnesses. Yes, why those 3? Because each saw a different portion of the operation. On purpose? Yes. Helen Price spoke for the first time. Are you saying someone wanted me to see that chair? Wolfe turned toward her. Yes. Why? So that you would remember the chair. She frowned. Why would that matter? Because later, when someone described a desk, you would contradict him. James Avery said. I never contradicted her. No. You said we were all telling the truth. You were. Richard Denton looked confused. Then why was I shown the curtains? Wolfe answered quietly. Because you were the third piece. The room fell silent. 3 witnesses, 3 arrangements, 3 memories, each truthful, each incomplete. Together they described something none of them had seen as a whole. Kramer said, What? Wolfe looked at him. The transfer. He returned to his desk. The room was designed to prevent any participant from seeing the entire operation. He placed the photographs in sequence. One person entered through the hotel corridor, another through the service passage. A third waited in the observation chamber. The document could be passed without 2 participants being seen. Together, Kramer nodded slowly. That explains the room. No. What? It explains the method. Then what are we missing? The purpose. Wolfe looked at Walter Crane. You have known the purpose for 14 years. Crane closed his eyes. I knew enough. What was transferred? Crane said nothing. Wolfe turned to Eleanor Voss. What was transferred? She whispered. The Harcourt deed. Kramer looked sharply at her. What deed? The original ownership agreement. For the Hamilton? No, she looked at him. For the entire Harcourt property group. The room became still, I said. How many buildings? 23. Kramer swore under his breath. Wolfe continued. The original agreement established that the properties were held under one controlling trust. Kramer looked at Crane. Then the later sales were fraudulent. Yes, and someone has been profiting from them for 14 years. Yes, how much? Wolfe said enough. That was Wolfe's way of saying a great deal. Kramer looked at the ledger. Where is the original? Nobody answered. Wolfe turned toward the desk. The scratch. I understood. The desk. The scratch proves it was moved. More than that. He held up the photograph. The scratch occurred when the desk was moved through the old service corridor. Yes, but why does that matter? Because the desk was not empty. I stared. What? Wolfe pointed to the photograph. Look at the position of the scratch. I did. The mark was low on the leg. Someone had forced the desk against the wall. Why? To hide something behind it. Kramer said. A document. Yes. Where? Wolfe looked at me. Where did you find the paper? In the desk. No, I frowned. In the desk drawer. Correct. Then, the paper was not the hiding place. He looked at the others. It was an instruction. I remembered the 3 numbers. 11:20. Wolfe continued. The document was hidden in the desk itself. Crane suddenly moved. Only half a step. Kramer noticed. So did I. Wolfe did not move. The scratch occurred when the desk was dragged into the observation chamber, Crane said. That's impossible. No. You didn't see it. I did not need to. Wolfe pointed toward the diagram. The desk was too large to pass through the corridor without turning. He demonstrated with the model. When turned, the leg struck the wall. A small scrape, fresh paint. The mark on the desk. That happened 14 years ago, Kramer said. But the scratch was fresh. Exactly, everyone stared. Wolfe's expression did not change. The scratch was not 14 years old. I said then, the desk was moved recently. Yes. Because someone recently recovered the document. I looked at the ledger. The original? Yes, Kramer said, but you said it was hidden in the desk. It was. Then where is it now? Wolfe looked at Walter Crane. Mr. Crane. Crane stared back. You moved the desk. No, you moved it 14 years ago. Crane's face hardened. And again 2 nights ago. I did not. Your hands did not need to touch it. Wolfe turned toward Eleanor Voss. Mrs. Voss gave the instruction. Voss closed her eyes. Yes. Kramer stood. Then where is the document? Wolfe said nothing. I understood. The room had become very quiet. The missing document was not in the desk. It was not in room 314 too. It had been moved. The question was where. Then Wolfe reached beneath his desk and produced a long envelope. I recognized it. The same envelope I had found behind the mirror. 3 remembers. Wolfe placed it on the desk. The document was removed from the desk before the room was altered. Kramer stared. By whom? Wolfe looked at him. By the person who understood that the furniture was not merely furniture. Who? Wolfe turned toward Thomas Reed. The clerk went white. No. You were the one who issued the second key. I don't remember. You remember. No. You entered room 314. No. You removed the document. No. Wolfe shook his head. Mr. Reed. Reed looked relieved. Then Wolfe continued. You did not remove it. Reed's relief vanished. You were instructed to open the room. By whom? By Mrs. Voss. Voss looked down. Why? She need access. Kramer turned toward her. You removed the document? No. Wolfe said she removed the copy. Yes. Then where is the original? Wolfe looked at Walter Crane. Crane closed his eyes. The original was never in room 314. I said, then where? Crane opened his eyes. Room 208. I felt a chill. The strip. 2108, 417, 314, 1120. Wolfe nodded. Exactly. Crane continued. The original was delivered to me in 208. 14 years ago? Yes, and you kept it. I did. Where? Crane looked toward Wolfe. Not anymore. Kramer stepped toward him. Who took it? Crane said nothing. Wolfe answered. The 314 was reconstructed. He turned to me. Mr. Goodwin. Yes? Bring the envelope. I placed it on the desk. Wolfe opened it. Inside was a folded sheet, not the original deed, a copy, but beneath it was something else, a receipt, a storage receipt. I read it. Hamilton Hotel, basement archive, locker 208. Kramer stared. Locker 208? Wolfe nodded. The original document was never hidden in room 314. He looked at the group. Room 314 was the decoy. Nobody spoke. The furniture. He touched the photograph. The witnesses. He touched the ledger, the keys. He touched the receipt. All of it was designed to make investigators search room 314. Kramer said, and the real document? Locker 208. Who has the key? Wolfe looked at Walter Crane. Crane slowly reached into his coat. He produced a small brass key. He placed it on the desk. I kept it for 14 years. Kramer picked it up. Why didn't you turn it over? Crane looked tired. Because the people who owned the properties would have killed me. Wolfe said quietly, they nearly did. Kramer looked at him. Who? Wolfe turned toward Eleanor Voss. She was crying, not loudly. Just enough. Kramer understood. You, she nodded. I was trying to protect the document. By moving furniture, by confusing the trail, by sending people into 314. Yes. By making them see different things. Yes. Why? She looked at Crane. Because I knew the original would eventually be found, Wolfe said. And when that happened, the only safe way to expose the truth was to bring everyone connected to the room. Kramer looked at Wolfe. So the witnesses were part of the plan? Yes. The music? Wolfe shook his head. Kramer frowned. What? The previous mystery was irrelevant, I smiled. Kramer looked at me. Previous mystery, I said. Different room. He looked annoyed. Wolfe continued. The 3 witnesses were not selected because they had seen the same event. They were selected because they could describe 3 arrangements. Each description preserved one piece of the method. Kramer looked at the photographs. And the missing document was the reason. He nodded slowly. Then he looked at Crane. Where is the locker? Crane said. In the basement. Kramer turned to his men. Let's go. Wolfe stopped him. Inspector. Kramer looked back. Yes, take the ledger. The whole thing? Yes. Why? Because it proves the room was used. Kramer picked it up. And the receipt? Take that too. He turned toward the door. Then he stopped. What about Voss? Wolfe looked at her. She will come with you. Voss stood. She looked at Wolfe. Did you know? Know what? That I would confess? No, then why bring me here? Because you were the only person who could explain why the room had 3 faces. She nodded. I thought so. As Kramer led the others out, Walter Crane remained. He looked at Wolfe. You knew I had the key, yes. The scratch. The scratch proved the desk had been moved twice. And you were the only person with a reason to know where it had gone. The first time gave a tired smile. You are very good. Wolfe looked offended. I am adequate. Crane laughed once. Then he left. I waited until the door closed. That was a little cruel. What? You let him think he had hidden something from you. I did not. You knew about the locker. I suspected. You had no proof. I had the receipt. I looked at him. You planted it. No. Then who? Wolfe reached for the telephone. Mr. Goodwin. Yes? Call the Hamilton. Why? Ask whether locker 208 has been opened. I called. The answer came quickly. No. I hung up. Still sealed. Wolfe nodded. Good. Now the truth is safe. I looked toward the door through which Kramer had disappeared. What happens now? The locker will be opened. And the document. And the fraudulent transfers. If 3/4. Wolfe looked toward the door. It will become a hotel room again. I smiled. After all this? Yes, that's disappointing. No. He reached for his coffee. What is disappointing is that hotels continue to believe that furniture is decoration. I laughed. Wolfe did not. Then, after a moment, he added, furniture is evidence. And that, I thought, was as close as Nero Wolfe was ever likely to come to saying that he had enjoyed himself. Chapter 8. The Secret of Room 3. There are rooms in New York that are rented by the hour, rooms rented by the night, rooms rented by the month, and rooms rented for reasons that have nothing to do with sleeping. Room 314 at the Hamilton Hotel belonged to the last category. It had never been a bedroom in the important sense. The bed, the curtains, the desk, the green armchair, the mirror, and even the door were props in an arrangement whose purpose was comfort but deception. The room had concealed no man. It had concealed a transaction. That was the conclusion Nero Wolfe reached shortly after noon, when Inspector Kramer returned to the brownstone, with a document in his possession and the expression of a man who had discovered that a simple investigation had become considerably more complicated. I was in the office when he entered. Wolfe was behind his desk. His coat was off. His shirt sleeves were rolled up. Fritz had just served him lunch, and Wolfe was considering a plate of roast duck with the grave attention of a banker examining a questionable signature. Kramer held an envelope. He put it on Wolfe's desk. The locker was opened. I know. Kramer stared at him. How? You have an envelope. So? You would not have brought me an empty envelope. You'd be surprised what I have brought you in the past. Not sufficiently, Kramer grunted. He sat. The document was there. I looked at Wolfe. Did not look at me. The original? Yes. Unaltered? Apparently. Good. Kramer leaned forward. You want to tell me how much of this you knew before you sent us to that locker? No. Why not? Because you would ask another question, such as, how much remains unknown? Kramer scowled. Fine. How much remains unknown? Wolfe lifted his fork. He ate a piece of duck. Kramer watched him. I watched Kramer. It was more entertaining. Finally, the inspector said, I've got 3 witnesses, a hotel manager, a desk clerk, a housekeeper, a missing businessman, a dead lawyer, a dead hotel owner, a property company that changed names 3 times, a ledger that shouldn't exist, a hidden chamber, and a room that seems to have been furnished by a lunatic. Not a lunatic. Then what? A planner. Kramer nodded toward the envelope. And this proves what? Everything. That's a large word. It is a large document, I said. What exactly is it? Kramer looked at me. The original Harcourt transfer agreement. The one that proves the properties were held under the trust? Yes. And the later sales were invalid? That is the preliminary legal conclusion. Preliminary. Kramer gave me a look. You want the whole legal conclusion? No. I want to eat lunch. Wolfe said, then do so. I'll wait, then suffer. Kramer turned to me. Does he always eat while other people are trying to solve crimes? No. Some he eats while other people are trying to prevent them. Wolfe ignored us. He finished the duck. Then he wiped his fingers carefully. The document resolves the financial questions, Kramer said, but not the room. The room is easier. Then explain it. Wolfe leaned back. I will. I knew then that we were in for the final gathering. Wolfe had already assembled the facts. Now he intended to arrange them. That was how he worked. A case came to him as a heap. Names, objects, contradictions, lies, facts, accidents. Slowly, he reduced the heap to a structure. When the structure was complete, he presented it as though it had been obvious from the beginning. It never was. The brownstone was quiet that afternoon. Outside, New York moved through its usual business of making noise for no reason. A truck complained at the curb. A taxi horn answered. Somebody shouted from across the street. The sound came through the windows and disappeared among the heavy curtains. Inside, the office was different. Wolfe had arranged the chairs again. This time there were more. Inspector Kramer sat nearest the desk. Bellamy sat beside him. Thomas Reed sat near the door. Martha Hale sat beside the fireplace. Eleanor Voss sat opposite Walter Crane. Helen Price, James Avery and Richard Denton occupied 3 chairs together. The original witnesses looked uncomfortable. They had been asked to come back. I knew why. Wolfe had told me that if he was going to close the case, he would do it in front of the people who had helped create it, or had been caught inside it. The distinction was important. There was one additional person, a lawyer named George Whitcomb, representing the estate connected with the Harcourt properties. He had arrived carrying a briefcase. Wolfe disliked briefcases. He looked at it. Mr. Whitcomb, yes? Put that on the floor. Whitcomb hesitated. It contains legal papers. I am aware of the function of a briefcase. Whitcomb placed it beside his chair. Wolfe looked around. Now we may begin. Kramer sighed. I've heard that before. Then you should be prepared. For what? The explanation. Kramer folded his arms. Make it good. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. I never make anything. I smiled. That's true. Wolfe ignored me. He began with the 3 witnesses. Mrs. Price. Helen Price looked at him. You entered room 314 on the first evening. Yes. What did you see? The green armchair. Anything else? The curtains. Where were they? Over the window. Was there a desk? She thought. I don't remember one. Exactly. He turned to James Avery. Avery. Yes. You entered the room on another evening. What did you see? The writing desk beneath the window. Was there a green armchair? I don't remember one. Exactly. He turned to Richard Denton. And you? The curtains? Heavy curtains? Yes. Did you see the desk? No. The green chair? No. Yet all 3 of you described the same room. Nobody spoke. Wolfe continued. You have been told that one of you must have been mistaken. Helen Price looked at him. I wondered. You were not. James Avery shifted. Then how? The room changed. Kramer said. We know that. No. You'll know the furniture changed. What's the difference? The furniture was changed for a purpose. He stood. That purpose was to control sight. He walked to the wall where he had placed a drawing of room 314. Observe. He pointed to the doorway. Anyone entering from the corridor sees approximately this. He indicated the desk. Unless the desk is moved. He shifted the marker. Then he sees the mirror. Another movement. Unless the mirror is turned. Another. Then he sees the corridor. Another. If the curtains are open, the window becomes visible. Another. If they are closed, the room becomes visually smaller. He looked at the witnesses. The room was capable of presenting several different appearances without appearing to have been deliberately rearranged.
Kramer said,
Why would anyone care? Because a witness who sees a green chair will swear to a green chair. He pointed to the next photograph. A witness who sees a desk will swear to a desk. Another. A witness who sees curtains will swear to curtains. He turned. Each statement is true. He paused. Together they appear impossible, I said, which is exactly what happened. Yes. Kramer leaned forward. So whoever arranged the room wanted the witnesses to contradict each other, yes. Wolfe looked at Walter Crane. Because Mr. Crane had discovered the transaction. Crane did not move. Kramer looked at Crane. What transaction? Wolfe answered. The transfer of the Harcourt property group. Whitcomb spoke. That matter is extremely complicated. Wolfe looked at him. Not anymore. Whitcomb closed his mouth. Wolfe continued. 14 years ago, the Harcourt properties were controlled through a trust arrangement. The Hamilton Hotel was among them. He pointed to the document on the desk. The agreement established the controlling ownership. Kramer said, and then, the ownership was apparently transferred. Apparent? Fraudulently. Whitcomb shifted. That is an allegation. The original agreement proves it. Kramer nodded. Go on. American Property Consolidated began moving the properties through a chain of companies. Mercer Holdings, Northbridge, Harcourt Urban Assets. Different names, same interests, correct. Same people. Kramer looked at Whitcomb. Whitcomb said nothing. Wolfe continued. The purpose was simple. The properties could be sold, refinanced, pledged, and transferred while the original trust agreement remained out of sight. I said. So room 314 became a private exchange, yes. Copies moved through the room, yes. Originals were kept elsewhere, yes. And the hotel records were altered so nobody could establish who met whom precisely. Kramer looked at the ledger. That explains the false room assignments. Yes. The linen records. Yes. The keys. Yes. The furniture. Yes. The observation chamber. Yes. Kramer shook his head. That's a lot of trouble for a property deal. Wolfe looked at him. 23 properties. Kramer nodded. All right. Wolfe returned to his chair. The critical mistake was made by those who believed that secrecy could be maintained by destroying records. He lifted the linen ledger. They forgot that not all records look important. He opened it. The linen clerk recorded rooms because linen had to be accounted for. He looked at Martha Hale. She did not know the significance of the names. Martha nodded. She was performing her duty. Yes. He turned to Thomas Reed. The desk clerk issued keys. Reed lowered his head. Sometimes under instructions. Yes. Sometimes without knowing the purpose. Yes. He looked at Bellamy. The manager inherited a system he did not create. Bellamy nodded. And Mrs. Voss? Eleanor Voss looked up. I knew what the room was for. Wolfe nodded. Yes, she swallowed. I knew about the documents. You knew enough. I was trying to protect them. You were trying to protect yourself. Her eyes hardened. Both. Wolfe accepted that. Fair, Kramer said. Then explain Crane. Wolfe turned toward him. Mr. Crane was different. Crane looked up. He discovered the original agreement. How? By comparing two sets of property records. Crane nodded. I noticed the same properties appearing under different ownership. And you traced them? Yes. You found the Harcourt Trust. Yes. You found the original agreement. Crane looked at the envelope. I found a copy first, then the original. Yes. Where? Crane hesitated. Room 208. Kramer said. Why? Because the people controlling the transaction believed I had agreed to meet them there. Wolfe nodded. But you did not. No. You went to 314. Yes. And that was the night the first document exchange occurred. Yes. Kramer frowned. Then why was Crane later made to look unreliable? Wolfe answered. Because he knew too much. He turned toward the three witnesses. After Mr. Crane began talking about the property transfers. The people controlling the hotel had a problem. What problem? Kramer asked. They could not simply accuse him of lying. Why not? Because documents existed. Then what? They needed witnesses who would confirm that he had been mistaken. I understood. They needed the room to contradict itself. Wolfe nodded. Exactly. He looked at Helen Price. If Mrs. Price described the room with the green chair, Mr. Crane's description of the desk could be challenged. He turned to James Avery. If Mr. Avery described the desk, Mrs. Price's memory could be challenged. Then Richard Denton. If Mr. Denton described the curtains, both could be challenged. Kramer said, but all three were telling the truth. Yes. Which was the beauty of it. Wolfe's eyes hardened. Yes. The word hung in the room, he continued. The deception did not depend upon witnesses lying. He pointed to the photographs. It depended upon witnesses telling the truth about different moments. Kramer rubbed his forehead. So the room was altered deliberately. Yes. By Voss? No. Crane? No. Then who? Wolfe was silent for a moment. Then he looked at Bellamy. Mr. Bellamy. Bellamy stiffened. Kramer turned toward him. Is that your answer? No. Wolfe shook his head. Mr. Bellamy knew the hotel. Yes. He knew the maintenance system. Yes. He could authorize furniture movement. Yes. But he did not understand the original purpose of room 314. Bellamy looked relieved. Then why involve him? Because the person who controlled the operation used Bellamy's authority. Kramer looked at Reed. The clerk? No. Martha? No. Then who? Wolfe turned to Eleanor Voss. She closed her eyes. Kramer said, yes. Voss looked up. I moved nothing. No. I didn't touch the furniture. I know. Then you cannot accuse me. I am not accusing you of moving furniture. Then what? Of controlling the instructions. Her face changed. You have no proof. Wolfe pointed to the maintenance sheets. You signed them. She looked at the papers. No. I didn't. Your initials appear on 3 documents. I used those initials in my work. Exactly. Kramer said. You could have placed the instructions. Yes. Why? Because I wanted to protect the documents. By confusing the witnesses. Yes. Why? Because they were going to be questioned. By whom? By people who wanted to know what Crane had discovered. Kramer looked at her. And the missing document? Voss was silent. Wolfe answered. She did not know where it was. Voss looked at him. Not until recently, Kramer said. Who did? Walter Crane. Crane nodded. I kept the key. Why? Why? Because I knew the people behind the transaction would eventually search room 314. Why would they search there? Because they believed the original was hidden there, Wolfe said. That belief was encouraged. Kramer looked at him. By whom? By the person who altered the room. Kramer turned to Voss. She said nothing. Wolfe picked up the photograph of the desk. This scratch is the final physical clue. He placed it where everyone could see it. The desk was dragged through the service corridor. Kramer nodded. Yes. The scratch occurred when the leg struck the wall. Yes, but the important question is not how the scratch was made. What is? When? Wolfe pointed to the photograph. The desk was moved recently. Kramer said. We know. Then someone was searching for the document. Yes, but why search a desk that had already been examined? Because they knew something was inside. Yes, who told them? No one. Kramer frowned. Wolfe looked at Crane. Mr. Crane. Crane said nothing. You deliberately allowed the rumor to survive that the original document was hidden in room 314. Crane nodded. Yes. Why? To draw attention away from the locker. Exactly. Kramer stared. You used the room as bait. Yes. And the person controlling the room fell for it. Yes. Kramer looked at Voss. She said quietly. I thought the document was there. That was the point. She looked at him. You knew. I suspected. You used the room to trap me. No. Wolfe's voice was calm. You trapped yourself. There was a long silence. Outside, a siren passed on the avenue. Somewhere downstairs, Fritz dropped a spoon. Wolfe glanced toward the door. Then he looked back at the assembled group. The central mistake in this case was made by everyone. Everyone? Yes. How? Everyone assumed room 34's hiding a person. He looked at me. Mr. Goodwin saw footprints. Yes. Inspector Kramer saw an impossible disappearance. Yes. The witnesses saw contradictory furniture. Yes. The hotel saw unexplained room assignments. Yes. Mr. Crane saw an opportunity to conceal the original. Yes. And Mrs. Voss saw an opportunity to protect it. She looked down. But the room was never designed to conceal a person. Wolfe paused. It was designed to conceal a transaction. No one spoke, he continued. That distinction explains everything. He took the 3 photographs and arranged them side by side. Arrangement 1. Green chair. Arrangement 2. Writing desk. Arrangement 3. Curtains. The conspirators could control what each visitor saw. He placed the key records beside them. To play keys allowed different people to enter without creating a reliable sequence. Then the ledger. False assignments separated the meetings from the official hotel record. Then the maintenance sheets. Furniture movement could be disguised as routine work. Then the observation chamber. The person controlling the room could observe who entered and what they noticed. Then the strip of paper. The 3 room numbers established the movement between locations. Finally, he placed the original document on top, and the original agreement gave the entire operation its purpose. Kramer looked at the arrangement. It all fits. Yes. Every piece. Yes. Except the footprints, I smiled. Wolfe looked at me. Ah. He reached for the photograph. The footprints were the simplest part. Kramer leaned forward. Go on. The footprints were made deliberately. By whom? By a person wearing the shoes of Walter Crane. Crane looked at Wolfe. How did you know the size? That's not enough. No. Wolfe pointed to the dust pattern. The heel marks were identical to the pair you were wearing when you first came to my office. Crane looked down at his shoes. Kramer said, You staged them? Crane nodded. I wanted people to think I had been in the room. Why? Because I needed the room to appear active, Wolfe added. And because he wanted the person searching for the document to believe he was one step behind. Crane looked at him. Yes. Kramer frowned. So Crane staged part of the mystery. Yes, and Voss staged another part. Yes, and the hotel had been doing it for years. Yes. Kramer shook his head. I hate this case, I said. That's because you're beginning to understand it. He glared at me. Wolfe turned toward the three witnesses. You were not deceived because you were careless. Helen Price looked at him. Then why? Because the deception was architectural. James Avery said, Architectural? Yes. The room was part of it? Yes. The mirror? Yes. The curtains? Yes. Even the doorway? Yep. Especially the doorway. Richard Denton said, quietly. So we all told the truth. Wolfe looked at him. Yes, but none of us knew the whole truth. No, he leaned back. That is the secret of room 314. The witnesses sat silently. Wolfe continued. Everyone told the truth. He looked at each of them, but nobody had been allowed to see the whole truth. Kramer stood. He picked up the original agreement. This goes to the district attorney. Yes. Voss? Yes. Crane? He is a witness. Bellamy? Unless you find evidence against him. He is a hotel manager who was manipulated. Reed? The same Martha? Likewise. Kramer nodded. Then he looked at Wolfe. And the missing witnesses? Peter Lang? Alive. Kramer stared. Where? Philadelphia. You knew? Yesterday. And Martin Cole? Alive. Where? Connecticut. Kramer stared harder. How? They were never victims. Then why disappear? Because they were frightened. Kramer exhaled. Of course, I said. You might want to tell them they're no longer wanted for questioning. I will. He picked up the ledger. Then he paused. One thing. Wolfe looked at him. If the room was designed to hide transactions, why did they leave so many clues? Wolfe's expression became thoughtful. They did not. Then who did? People who wanted the truth found. Kramer looked at Voss. She said nothing. Then he looked at Crane. Crane looked toward the floor. Wolfe said, the room was built for secrecy. Time turned it into evidence. Kramer nodded. That's almost poetic. Don't insult me. Kramer laughed. For Wolfe, it was close to a compliment. The others departed gradually. Bellamy left first. Martha Hale followed. Thomas Reed paused at the door and thanked Wolfe. Wolfe nodded. Helen Price shook my hand. James Avery did the same. Richard Denton simply smiled. Eleanor Voss was the last of the principal witnesses to leave. At the door she turned. Mr. Wolfe. Yes? Did you ever believe me? Wolfe considered her. I believed your facts. She nodded. Your motives. No. She accepted it. Then she left. Walter. Crane remained. He looked tired. Wolfe. Yes, I suppose you want to know why I kept the key. No, I know. Crane smiled. Then why ask me? I didn't. Crane laughed softly. You're a difficult man. I have been told. He put his coat on. At the door he stopped. The room is empty now. Yes. No documents. No secret meetings. No hidden chamber. Still there. He smiled. Perhaps they should seal it. I disagree. Why? Every old building should have one room that reminds people not to trust appearances. Crane nodded. Then he left. When the door closed, I returned to my chair. Wolfe remained at his desk. The office was quiet again. I looked at the photographs. 3 rooms, 1 room, 3 truths, 1 truth. It was a neat ending. Too neat, perhaps. I said, you knew the answer when you saw the desk. The ledger? No. The scratch? No. The mirror? No. Then when? Wolfe leaned back. When the 3 witnesses described 3 different rooms. That early? Yes. Why? Because all 3 descriptions were accurate. That was the puzzle. No, what was? Their accuracy. Biff frowned. Explain. People lie about rooms. Sometimes, people misremember rooms. Often, but 3 unrelated witnesses do not independently invent different accurate details of the same room. So the room must have changed. I nodded. Then you knew the furniture was important. I suspected. The rest came later. Yes. Why did you care about the balcony? I didn't. You said someone was watching the audience. I said, someone was watching the people. Same thing. I smiled. Of course. Wolfe reached for the bell. Fritz appeared. Dinner. Roast chicken, Wolfe said. Yes, with mushrooms? Yes. Good. Fritz disappeared. I said, you know, for a man who claims not to care about music, you have spent an extraordinary amount of time thinking about a room. The room was not musical. Still, Wolfe looked toward the window. The afternoon had become evening. New York's lights were beginning to appear across the street. For a moment he said nothing. Then he said, good architecture is a form of logic. I waited. He continued. Bad architecture is merely expensive confusion, I laughed. Then I said, and 334? Wolfe closed his eyes. An excellent deception. Because nobody lied. Exactly. That's the part I like. You should. Why? Because it is the oldest trick in human affairs. What's that? Wolfe opened his eyes. Tell the truth selectively. I thought about the green armchair, the writing desk, the curtains, the mirror, the duplicate keys, the false room assignments, the ledger hidden among linen records, the observation chamber, the scratch on the desk, the original agreement, and Walter Crane, who had spent 14 years carrying a key to a locker while allowing everyone to believe the answer was somewhere else. Every piece had been true. Every statement had contained something real. Yet the truth had remained invisible because no single person had been permitted to see all of it. That was the genius of Room 314. It did not need a secret passage. It did not need a disappearing man. It did not need a murderer waiting behind a curtain. It needed only a chair moved 2 feet, a mirror turned a few degrees, a desk placed beneath a window, a key issued under the wrong name, and witnesses who were honest. I said, Wolfe. Yes? If you had been a witness in Room 314, what would you have seen? He considered it. Everything. I laughed. Naturally, he frowned. Why is that amusing? Because you weren't there. No, you would have had to stand in the right place. I would have chosen it. Of course. Fritz entered carrying dinner. Wolfe turned his attention to the roast chicken. The case was finished. The document was recovered. The property scheme would be exposed. The witnesses had been vindicated. The false records had been explained. The furniture had been reduced to furniture. The secret room had become merely a room, and Room 310 had finally surrendered its secret. It had never concealed a man. It had concealed a transaction. But more than that, it had concealed a method built on a simple principle. If everyone sees a different part of the truth, then everyone can tell the truth and still leave the truth hidden. I watched Wolfe carve his chicken. One last question. He did not look up. What? Did you ever enjoy solving this one? He paused. Then he looked at me. Goodwin. Yes, a room that lies without speaking is an interesting room. That's not an answer. It is the only answer you require. He returned to his dinner. I poured myself a drink and settled into my chair. Outside, the city continued to hurry toward night. Somewhere in Manhattan, guests were checking into hotels. Clerks were issuing keys. Housekeepers were moving chairs, and people were entering rooms without wondering who had arranged them or why. I decided that was probably a good thing. After all, there are some rooms a man is better off entering without knowing their history, and there are some mysteries a man is better off leaving to Nero Wolfe. Room 315 belonged to the second category. The room had changed overnight. The witnesses had changed their stories without changing a word. The furniture had moved, the records had lied, the mirrors had watched, and the truth had remained exactly where it had always been, in plain sight. The trick was that nobody had been standing in the right place to see it.